me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Woo! All right, guys. Hello. Cut the music. Cut the music, please. That was like a hilarious scene from a movie where you're like, please, I'm getting chopped in half. Let the music stop. Hello, guys. I'm Corinne Fisher. Welcome to Without a Country. If things look a little bit tighter, it's because we were in a different studio and it's a smaller studio, but it's fine because it's only me. I'm one person, so a small studio works fine for me, but that explains the difference. The studio has nothing to do with my hair being this color, though. Yeah, it's completely bleached. My goal is to have every single hair color. I mean, the ones that I want. There's some that I am not interested in, but basically to have every single hair color, to go to every single country that I want to go to, which is most of them, and then to pursue everything in life that I'm interested in. So we are continuing to do that. No time like the present. Usually I do more of a relaxed kind of like fuck it, look for the summer, and I hold my big good looks for September for my birthday. But I wasn't sure if I was gonna like bleach blonde hair. You're doing a lot to your hair, so it is a bit of a risk. It was already so light though that I was like, all right, let's go all the way bleach, and then we can go all the way back to our natural color whenever we want, instead of going in the reverse. And then I go, well, I look like a vampire, like a evil vampire somehow with bleached blonde hair more than ever. And it also, I thought it would make my skin look darker, but it made my skin look even paler, which is the goal. I would be transparent if I could be. And so this is fantastic news. I do have red lipstick on. It's giving a little bit Corinne Stefani. That is not always the look I am going for. I also feel like Gwen Stefani, not as cool as she used to be because of the marriage to Blake Shelton, who I do think is hot, but it's just kind of, it's just not really the vibe. And then you're like, she's like 50 and she like begged this guy to like propose, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it is summer, so I, even though I have a boyfriend, I do still stand by my thoughts that everyone who is interesting on Instagram gets so much less interesting the moment that they have a boyfriend. And it's more if they post about the boyfriend. It's not like the having the boyfriend. It's like if you are able to continue to exist on Instagram without me really knowing you have a boyfriend, the level of interestingness should continue. But it's really upsetting to me because there's this young woman who I follow who's in the woo-woo space. And I don't know. She's like over 10 years younger than me, but I just find this woman simply fascinating. And I really just like enjoy following her. I think she's like cool and interesting and like whatever. I don't know. I think she's just like a really good follow, and I rarely have a good follow. And she got a boyfriend, I don't know when, maybe a couple months ago, after kind of being one of these, not like a super feminist, fuck men, just kind of like, I don't have time for men was more the energy. Like, I'm busy pursuing my dreams. I don't have time for men. And it really made her essence spicy. And her essence recently got less spicy. And I don't mean like she's posting less sexual pics. She's still posting sexual pics, which I'm here for. But she just lost a bit of her edge. And then I realized it was because she got a boyfriend. And of course, the boyfriend is like way older than her and way less attractive than her and has a job that when you're in your 20s appears to be a prominent job. But I actually looked into it and it's like, he's like at the lower tier of what his job is. It's like on paper a job that is cool to date, but you've never seen anything he's done. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to
Flight attendant.
No, I wish. I was trying to be vague about it, but I was just like, ugh. So that's just like my summer rant. I feel like, summer we do a little bit lighter, but that is my recommendation for you, especially if you make a living from posting about yourself online. I don't know what it is, but this is a trend I have followed for so long. And again, this is more of a guys we fuck topic, but it's just on my mind right now. Anyone who I follow who was like a good, juicy follow just got so much less interesting when they started doing boyfriend content. For comedians, so much less funny. For artists, less interesting. For like social commentators, less intriguing. The whole thing. I don't know. And I mean, that's not like saying like, oh my God, keep your partner completely offline. And it's not like the sexuality. Obviously, like this is heterosexual women I'm talking about. So it's not like I was following them, for the notion of like maybe like aspirational fucking or something. It just takes something away from them. And I don't know what it is. Because I guess it's like now I'm following two people and I did not want to be following that second person. I don't know. It just waters down their essence. Anyway, welcome to the show. What a week it is. It's America's 249th birthday is upon us, and it feels like it, right? America, it's giving dementia. Obviously, I just because America for a country is a very young country, and I think we are in this, maybe we're 20 years old and we're drinking and driving, and we shouldn't even be drinking, let alone drinking and driving. Maybe that's the energy. But I read this article, and I did this at New Jokes yesterday, presented this concept at least. I was reading this article about how a woman brings older people with like dementia and Alzheimer's these really realistic looking newborn infant dolls, and it's all the fun of holding a newborn without any of the drama of dropping one. And I feel like America right now is one of these elderly people suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's. Like, it's just shit has hit the fan. And hopefully we are hitting our rock bottom now so that there's no place to go from up. But anytime I do feel like America has reached its rock bottom, it somehow gets rockier and bottomier, and pride is over. So we don't need to be bottoming anymore. So I don't know, but we will see. I am in my friend group. Because I have an outdoor space, I am in charge of the 4th of July. I had hung up my hat for a couple of summers because, my dad died, and then I just didn't feel like having people over for a long time. But I will be returning to my 4th of July duties this Friday, and hopefully Iran doesn't cyber attack us, and everyone makes it off the subway to my apartment unscathed. So we'll see. I don't know. I think you're totally allowed to celebrate, the 4th of July. I never want to be so liberal that I'm like, how can you celebrate the 4th of July? Like, that's kind of like the stank that ruins the Democratic Party or ruins the people on the left, that kind of performative nonsense that is literally ruining your day and not helping anything. So, yes, I still will be celebrating the 4th of July. I'll still be wearing red, white, and blue because that's what you do. And I think you can do that and still acknowledge that, like, I most likely would not want to live anyplace else but here. There are certain freedoms that we enjoy here for now that many other people will never get to experience. We can pursue our dreams and pursue, livelihood in many different ways. And also, when there are injustices, we can speak out without getting our hand chopped off or getting imprisoned, or, we can tweet crazy things. And, it doesn't really affect how we are treated or whether or not we're allowed at work the next day. I mean, unless it gets really out of hand and you probably shouldn't be in a public space, But I think I don't want to start overlooking those things because many people don't have them. So I think, if you're feeling weird about celebrating the 4th of July, like, listen, we're an overworked country. You can enjoy a cookout or a barbecue, and that doesn't mean that you're forgetting about all the awful things that are going on. And, make it fun. I think I'm going to have people roast America at my party. I'll have like a little roast bucket, like write down a roast joke. Obviously, my party is going to be filled with stand-up comedians, so that is a fun idea for my group of friends. But think of something in that, in that space for your friends if you're feeling weird about it. Again, I don't think like making some stance like I won't be like writing in all white in your Instagram story on a black background. I will not be celebrating America's birthday this year, and if you do, you're a traitor, and we should not have 1 ounce of joy until everybody in this country is safe. It's like, who is that for? I follow so many people who put shit up like that. Some are my friends, some are people related to me. And like, I love the energy, right? But like, first of all, no one wants to be around you. And part of making change is being able to kind of be around people and not be the most annoying person in the room. And that's from me, someone who notoriously loves to share very morbid information at parties. But furthermore, like when you're doing something, like who is really going to see this? Who is this for? Are you making this proclamation so that everyone knows how much you love justice in your friend group, other people who have time to be, clicking through stories on Instagram? Because for me, it feels like the people who you might be fighting for, people in danger of being ripped off the streets by ICE, or people who have to work 3 jobs to make ends meet, they're not seeing your Instagram stories. So I guess my only thought is like, before you do shit like that, think to yourself, like, who is it really for? If you are that concerned, go out to a neighborhood in your community where people don't speak English and might be undocumented, and share in their language of origin instructions on what to do if ICE comes. There's a good example of something that if you really do not, that's how you can spend your 4th of July. It's a Friday, it's a work day, people will be around to go do that. There are plenty of other things you can do to celebrate if you want to give that, I'm working at the soup kitchen on Thanksgiving, but never have entered a soup kitchen any other day in my life kind of energy. If you want to do that for 4th of July, truly be my guest. And I think that would be a great thing to do. But just like the performative stances or sharing an infographic about how you're not shopping on Amazon for one day literally is helping no one. And it's just exhausting. Okay, let's move on. I just want to give a really quick shout out to my friend Brian Silva. He is part of this, if you've ever heard me mention my VIGs, my very important gays, this incredible group of people who really set the foundation for my life in New York, and who supported my stand-up comedy when nobody else had money, because the gays always got the money first, because they get right to work. He is always doing such amazing work. He used to be, I believe his title was executive director of marriage equality. And so it was through him that me and my friend group, we phone banked for marriage equality. Obviously, that's now been 10 years since gay marriage has been legal in the U.S. And that's crazy, because it really does feel like not that long ago that we were all working together and marching at Pride and phone banking and doing all kinds of work to get that passed. And this man, Brian Silva, was at the forefront of that. And it's really exciting to have people like that in my friend group. I think being around other movers and shakers is the easiest and fastest and cheapest way to be inspired to do good yourself. I certainly was raised in a house where my mom was always, doing lots of, I don't want to say philanthropic, because I think it's only philanthropy when you're rich. I mean, I'm called philanthropy girl gal online as, more of a tongue-in-cheek joke. But I do keep it there to remind myself that, while I'm in the public eye, I don't feel like there's value, for me at least, being in the public eye if you're not being of service to the people. For me, it's way too much bullshit to put up with. Just for my own ego, like it's just not worth it. I love myself too much, so I wouldn't be getting enough out of it. But I think that, I think just like always being around people who took extra time to do things for others has really inspired me to try and do the same. And so I encourage you, if you're, feel like you're at some kind of an impasse, like perhaps maybe the people that you're surrounding yourself aren't movers and shakers. And you can certainly find people who are doing good for your community in your community. And not that you have to dismiss all your other friends, but you can always add to your friend group, and you can have your friend group who you party with, and you can have your friend group who you do volunteer work with. And I certainly have two friends groups like that. The people I've called a party, unfortunately, are not the people that I call to volunteer. They're rarely the same, people. I aspire to be one who is both, but, there are years that I'm a volunteer galley and years that I'm a party galley. So right now, a clip actually just came across my Instagram where Brian was on JVN's podcast, Jonathan Van Ness, and Jonathan Van Ness, has a lot of political guests on their show. I think his pronoun, is it he, they? What's their pronoun? It's definitely they. Sorry, I just want to make sure to get this right. JVN. They, he, she. Okay, so I can use anything. Great. You know what? They, he, she is the best are the best pronouns because you're never going to be wrong. Yeah, but so Jonathan Van Ness obviously has a podcast and does a lot of political work, and he was at the No Kings March, and they were, and anyway, so they had Brian Silva, my friend, on, and I didn't realize where my friend was working because he's in my friend group, like not like my closest friend, but Brian works for this group called Americans United for separation of church and state, which I got to be honest, I didn't even know was an organization that existed, but it is, and it's great. And it's also made me kind of sad that we need this organization to uphold what is already in the Constitution, But obviously with God Watch and with all the things happening and with our country slowly devolving into this weird Christian nationalism energy, I'm really glad that Americans United for Separation of Church and State exists. You can just, for sure, they just call it Americans United. And Brian was talking to JVN about the work that they do. So I highly recommend you listen to the whole episode. It just came out this afternoon, so I haven't even gotten a chance to listen to the entire episode yet. But I wanted to give Brian a shout out. He is someone who has always consistently done so much work for others. If you're in New York City and working in any kind of LGBTQ space or obviously any separation of church and state space, you probably already know who he is. But definitely watch that interview. And I know a lot of you have been really concerned about the lack of separation of church and state. So au.org is a really interesting place where you can go. And right on the top, when you go to au.org, you can report a violation. So I know some of you have presented things to me in your municipal politics stories that were violations of the separation of church and state. So similar to the ACLU, and again, I just found out about Americans United today, so I've learned what I can in the past couple of hours, but it seems like they sue similar to the ACLU when there is a breach of the separation of church and state. And I think that's really cool. When you go to their website, it says equality without exception. Church-state separation ensures that all people are treated the same, full civil rights regardless of their religious beliefs or the religious beliefs of others. Americans United for Separation of Church and State is a nonpartisan, not-for-profit educational and advocacy organization that brings together people of all religions and none to protect the right of everyone to believe as they want and stop anyone from using their beliefs to harm others. We fight in the courts, legislatures, and public square for freedom without favor and equality without exception. Our vision, we envision a nation where we are all free to believe or not believe as we choose, where our laws don't allow anyone to use their religious beliefs to harm others, and where we can come together as equals to build a stronger democracy. And I think this is particularly interesting with what we're going through in the mayoral race right now in New York City. There's so much talk, again, in a municipal election about, Israel versus Palestine, and that's a human rights issue, but it does have its basis certainly in religion and two groups that have been fighting for a very long time. And so, for me, I am like, my thought is never the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't know. I don't subscribe to that at all. And for me, it's like, well, we know Andrew Cuomo's a scumbag. We know Eric Adams is a scumbag. We don't really know who Zohran Mamdani is yet. He's really new to the scene. We're familiar with his family because his parents are famous people. But I don't think that you should be liked or disliked because of who your parents are. You're your own person and you have your opportunity in life to prove yourself. And so to me, it's like, all right, like there could be a conversation about things that we might see that are a little bit alarming, especially with his really fast rise to fame. I think anytime we see someone really kind of come from nowhere and like have this like huge, really fast rise to fame, I always say, just put a pin in that. Keep an eye on that. That's all, though. But I think, it is of my thought to give someone new a chance. Give someone new a chance to, I guess, excite us or let us down. But certainly don't, not like put a crown on someone's head and bow down to them as if they are a king before they've really even done anything of service for the community yet. Zoran's done some things. He did a lot of great work with some taxi drivers in New York City previously. But again, right now, all it is promises. So I think it's great to be really excited about someone's promises, to be like, these promises are great. I love this person's approach. I love their energy. I love this person's work ethic. I think these are all great things, and I'm excited about them too. But ultimately, let's fanboy and fangirl after some of this work comes to fruition, not at the promise of these ideas, Again, as my advisor told me when I came to him and said, man, it kind of bums me out running for office because I just feel like I'm talking about myself all the time. And really what I want to be doing is like making people's lives better. And he said, well, of course, that's all you're doing. This is the longest job interview you'll ever have. So I think I just want you guys to keep that in mind. Again, I don't want to dissolve the excitement. The excitement is good. The excitement is giving a new young politician with fresh ideas an opportunity to be the mayor of, arguably the most important city to be mayor of in the country. And I think that's a good thing. You need excitement to get people to the polls. Getting people to the polls is the most difficult part of running for office. So that's great. Don't let that dissolve. But just like, don't let someone not be able to be criticized, especially when they are merely in the job interview part of running still, Until November, all the candidates are still being interviewed for the job. So all I ask is that we still treat it that way. And that's it. And again, I think I don't live in constant fear of something really going terrible, because we have organizations like Americans United. If someone says, this is who I am and this is what I want to do, and it turns out that that's not who they are and they don't make good on their promises, well, then we muster up the same enthusiasm we had getting out into the polls to vote for them, and we stop them. And that is the beauty of America, because there are other countries where you don't get to vote at all. Or when someone gets into power, it's much, 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 much harder than it is here to get them out. And it's still pretty hard here. Like we've seen so many impeachment proceedings during our lifetime. That's for president. But that's just kind of like all these things linked together. I don't let your fear stop you from trying new things, whether that be bleaching your hair or voting for someone who is 33 years old and we don't really know what they're going to do, but we do know what the other guys have done, and it's not good. So, try something new. Don't let fear keep us from progress. And check out Brian Silva on the JVN podcast. What the hell is JVN's podcast name? I'm just like calling it the JVN podcast. Getting better, getting curious. What the hell was it? I don't know. pretty curious. He's apparently had too many podcasts, so whatever. It's on his Instagram. It's JVM. All right, let's move on to the Patreon. As I mentioned last week, Hannah Pendergrass, speaking of, people being crowned, she has hung up her crown. She is no longer the dictator. And like clockwork, we already have a new dictator. Please all hail Christopher Fan Guy. This is a person who was part of the Patreon for quite some time, was a cutie, and went all the way up to dictator. And I love that. It's kind of like how Zohran went from assembly member to mayor of the Democratic primary. Like, I love that. So welcome, Christopher Fan Guy. I do owe you a personalized video now that you are the dictator. So either message me on Patreon or send me an email withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. Tell me what you want a video about. Obviously, no weird stuff. But other than that, it can be for you. It can be for a friend. Whatever you want. If you want advice, if you want thoughts on something silly, something more serious, let me know. Just nothing that would jeopardize a future candidacy that you could post on TikTok and ruin my whole career. But I'll keep it in check, though. All right, moving on to the enemy of the state this week. This week's enemy of the state is guys who think it's hilarious to post their selfie with Diddy today.
Enemy of the state.
Saw way too many of you. Saw way too many pictures of Diddy. Saw way too many straight to camera videos being like, oh, it's going to be a fucking boys weekend. Oh, pop it off for the 4th of July. Saw way too many Instagram stories with Diddy songs in them. I understand. These are mostly comedians. I understand we're all fucking comedians. We're all talking about the funny stuff that's going on in pop culture. But let me tell you, didn't see any female comedians posting sillies about P. Diddy. Didn't see any female comedians posting a selfie with Diddy. Why is that? Why is that? Maybe because women understand the gravity of what Diddy did and understand what an injustice it is to survivors, the ruling. Maybe that's why. Let's go into this news story. This is from NBC News. Sean Diddy Combs found not guilty of racketeering. As we know, racketeering is an umbrella term for like generalized crime and sex trafficking. But convicted of lesser charges. The judge denied bail for the Bad Boy Records founder, saying it would be impossible for Combs to prove he does not pose a danger. Sentencing is scheduled for October 3rd. Spooky season indeed. I added that last part myself. Sean Diddy Combs, the one-time global hip-hop titan whose federal trial unveiled harrowing testimony accusing him of sexual abuse against women and forced drug-dazed freak-offs, was acquitted Wednesday of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking, but found guilty of lesser charges. The jury's verdict, delivered on the third day of deliberations, declared Combs, 55, not guilty of 1 count of racketeering, conspiracy, and 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, but guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Later Wednesday, U.S. District Judge Arun Subramanian denied Combs' bail request, saying it would be impossible for him to prove he does not pose a danger, which I like that part. The verdict is seen as a win for Combs and his defense team, which did not call a single witness during the 7-week trial. After it was read, his family stood in the background clapping and cheering, which again is like, considering what you were being accused of, I don't think we celebrate like that, even if we're happy in our hearts. It's like really, it lacks tact. Combs fell to his knees in prayer. Wow. Oh my Lord. As he left the courtroom, he told his family, "Thank you, love you." Tenny Garagos, one of Combs' attorneys, broke out in tears. Wow, they all took acting lessons for this. His lead attorney, Mark Agnafilo, either that or he, Combs had threatened his fucking life and he was crying because he wasn't going to be shot in the head mysteriously. His lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, made a fist in triumph as the defense team hugged one another and hugged his family. Can we just stop for a moment and talk about a fist of triumph and how only assholes do it? Have you ever seen someone who was a good person like win something and go like this afterwards? Like this to me, like if you are successful in something and you go like this, that's just everyone letting everyone know that like you're a bad person, you do some bad things to get to this triumph. Watch me forget I said that, and like in 10 years, like I win an Oscar and I go like this. If I'm holding it up, that doesn't count. It has to be the fist with no, if a trophy is in it, that's completely different. It's a great victory for Sean Combs, Agnifilo told reporters outside the courthouse. It's a great victory for the jury system. You saw that the Southern District of New York prosecutors came at him with all that they had. Agnifilo had asked Subramanian, there's a lot of vowels there, Subramanian, to release Combs from federal detention, where he has been for nearly a year. He also asked for Combs to be released on conditions to his home in Miami, offering a $1 million bond. Combs has been a, quote, model prisoner who is in the process of working on himself. Yeah, aren't we all? And has no plans to flee, Agnifilo said. In his denial, the judge cited Combs's attorney's own words. We own the domestic violence, and said prosecutors had presented evidence that Combs had engaged in years of lifelong violence. He continues to be a danger to others, the judge said. The judge set a sentencing date of October 3rd. Prosecutors are seeking between 4 and 5 years behind bars, the judge said. Chaos and celebrations outside the courthouse. Combs's family, including his mother and his son, Justin Combs, left the courthouse shortly after the verdict. A crowd of supporters swarmed the family's waiting van, shouting, "Free Puff, free Puff, free Puff." Like, which is, again, just such a joke. This man wouldn't do jack shit for you. All these people outside the courthouse, just know. God, it reminds me of this episode of Survivor from like years and years and years and years ago when I was like a little girl and I would watch Survivor with my family. And there was two people on it feuding. And at the reunion, one survivor said to the other, like, if I passed you in the desert, I wouldn't give you my last drop of water, or like something like crazy like that. That's how Diddy would treat any of you outside the courthouse, right? You mean nothing to him. So you mean nothing to him, and you are making yourself look like a jackass to support someone who truly wouldn't care or know if you were living or dead. So just know that. And like, I understand like supporting someone in their court trial if the like what the trial is about is representative of something larger that you are passionate about. Certainly then it's meaningful. But like, what are you, if you're outside for Diddy, what are you passionate about? Like he's just straight up is a domestic abuser. That's not even like really up for, we saw the vid. So that's for sure. And then this other stuff, I mean, what is it that you're celebrating? The injustice of 1 in 2.5 million, every 1 in 2.5 million men who get wrongly accused of racketeering and sex trafficking. Like, what is it? Please clear it up for me. His mother, Janice Combs, later returned to the courthouse waving to onlookers and fans and blowing kisses. You know that bitch was an enabler if her son ended up like this. Outside court, Combs' supporters celebrated with baby oil, so making a mockery out of sexual abuse, which is always one of my favorite things. An apparent reference to supplies witnesses said were provided for freak-offs. A woman in a bikini danced as a man drizzled baby oil on her from a nearby ledge. Honestly, it's good that I'm not mayor because I would have been like immediate castration. And I feel like that's that is very different from socialism, immediate castration. So maybe, you know what, maybe the Board of Elections was right. Amid the throngs of onlookers were the influencers who have been chronicling the trial from the courthouse since it began roughly 2 months ago. You know what? And another reason that I didn't follow this as closely as, you know, you guys might have thought I would have or even expected me to is because it was just, to me, it was giving me another summer of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, and I just couldn't go through that again for my own personal health. Like, that trial affected me so deeply. I had to talk about it in therapy multiple times, and then I had to ultimately ban myself from even intaking any of the content. And again, I do want to remind you, no matter what you still think, I was 100% right about that and remain to be 100% right about that. And no one has presented me with anything that puts any amount of doubt in my mind about how right I was about that. That being said, I just couldn't go through that again. Los Angeles-based YouTuber Armon Wiggins, who has more than 285,000 followers, declined to share his thoughts about the verdict itself, but acknowledged a victory of a different sort. "We changed the face of media. We changed the face of how news gets out," Wiggins said. "It was a fight in the beginning because a lot of times people don't respect the new media, but I'm one of those people who's willing to fight with the traditional media because we do numbers." Okay. The trial has drawn nationwide attention. No cameras were allowed in court. So to follow along with what was happening in the courtroom, people turned to traditional media sources as well as influencers who were at the trial. I don't really know. I mean, I guess they're allowed because influencers are being treated more like traditional press, which I don't hate. I don't hate that. The White House is doing it now too. You better believe your girl applied to be a White House correspondent. You better believe I did. And do not give me any lip. If I get that call, I'm going to the White House, and I will have to shake Trump's hand, but that's, you know, what you got to do. Sometimes you gotta just kind of choke down a shit. That's not a saying, but I just made it up. Sometimes you gotta just like choke down a shit for the bigger picture. And if I was in there and I could meet some people, shake some hand, I'm shaking everyone's hand. If that's what it takes to get the information. I'll get friendship bracelets with Marjorie Taylor Greene if I have to bring you the news, guys. That's how committed I am to this. Wiggins said that since he began covering the trial, he's gained about 60,000 new followers on YouTube and nabbed several radio and TV appearances, including on TMZ and News Nation. And you know what? That's really what life's all about. That's what life's all about. It's about 60,000 new followers, so I'm so happy for Wiggins. A swift downfall for Combs. The partial conviction caps an astonishing moment for Combs, a self-made rapper from New York who rose to the pinnacle of hip-hop culture and became a household name. He once ruled the hip-hop and R&B charts and was a fixture in celebrity circles, propelled by his exuberant personality, lavish lifestyle, and business pursuits, including reality television and fashion, as an entrepreneur and brand ambassador. I mean, this is just really reminding me how relevant Diddy was and how not relevant he is now. That's all this article is really doing. After a 3-decade run in the spotlight, allegations by his ex-girlfriend, the R&B singer Cassie, began his precipitous fall from impresario to convicted criminal. Over the course of the trial, a jury of 8 men and 4 women, wonder why the verdict came out the way it did, heard the U.S. government accuse Combs, the founder of Bad Boy Records, of leveraging his power, wealth, and influence as the head of a criminal enterprise to sexually abuse and exploit women for his own gratification over 2 decades. And I feel like there's such a larger conversation. We could do a whole episode on how the overlap between hip hop culture and mafia culture, and really explore that when we're talking about criminal enterprises. But, you know, we should probably get people who work in either of those fields, and I am not one of them. His defense pitched to jurors that the case was badly exaggerated and that he was on trial simply for a swinger's lifestyle. Yes, don't yuck Diddy's yum. Don't yuck. Diddy's yum is kicking Cassie in the head by the elevator. Don't kink shame Diddy. One tinged with violent behavior and supplies of drugs and baby oil that was ultimately consensual. Okay, well, you know how, like, let me stop for a moment and let's talk. You know how wearing a seatbelt is the law? So when we talk about consent, sometimes the law has to step in because some of us are fucked up in the head and we don't know what's best for us. And I think maybe that's what's coming up here a little bit. Again, maybe that's what's coming into play here a little bit, that people don't know really what's best for themselves if you're claiming this was consensual. Okay. Again, I don't really believe anything this guy says. And also, if you want to get a little taste of who the fuck was representing Diddy, this clown car of representatives he had, go on YouTube and just Google Ryan Long, Diddy lawyer. So, my good friend Ryan Long, the comedian, he accidentally got this interview that all these other reporters were trying to get by just hanging outside and going into this area that the press knew they weren't allowed to go into, but he just kind of like moseyed in there. Not like as a strategy, just truly didn't know he wasn't supposed to be there, which if you know Ryan Long at all is the most Ryan Long thing I've ever heard in my life. Just kind of wandering around, not reading signs, not knowing where he should be, and then just putting a microphone in someone's face. But it really, again, it just shows you the type of clowns that were representing Diddy, the lack of seriousness they had for the gravity of the situation. And third, it's yet another example of, for you, that you should really try to pursue any role that you want to pursue. If you want to be a big time lawyer for Diddy and you think you're not smart enough, watch this video. You're more than smart enough, I assure you. This guy is a fucking dingbat. So yet again, just you are good enough and smart enough to pursue really anything you want, especially if you're listening to this show. If you are even interested in listening to someone talk about the news for 2 hours, you're smart enough, because we got actual morons running the world. Jurors heard from almost 36 government witnesses, from former personal assistants to stylists to label artists, some willingly testifying against Combs, while others were granted immunity in exchange for their testimony. 3 women, including Cassie, whose real name is Cassandra Ventura, were central figures in the case. They provided graphic testimony about allegations of sexual assault and violence or threats of blackmail. Combs' lawyers called no witnesses, and Combs himself decided not to testify, as much of the defense's case was laid out during lengthy cross-examinations of government witnesses. And I think when you're guilty as hell like Diddy, it is best not to testify yourself. Ventura's attorney, Doug Wigdor, especially when you're famous and people have preconceived notions about you, you kind of like, you want to stay off mic as much as possible. Again, follow that Beyonce rule. Less is more. Less is more. And I'm not talking about less is more. Obviously, she puts on a hell of a show, but I'm talking about people should really only see performer you. They really shouldn't see a lot of real you. Not applicable to comedians, obviously, because being us is our whole brand. But for any other type of like fame, it's the only way to be untouchable. Once you know too much about a person, it is so hard to remain untouchable. I would say one person who's done a really good job of being pretty available for interviews and documentaries and stuff and still being untouchable is Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga, had a whole documentary about her, does interviews regularly, interviews with fans, still comes off as an absolute untouchable freak of nature. And that is extremely hard to achieve. So good on her. Ventura's attorney, Doug Wigdor, told reporters outside the courthouse Wednesday that his team would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crimes and racketeering charges, but that they were pleased that he has finally been held accountable and faces substantial jail time on the lesser charges. I mean, 2 to 5 years is nothing, especially when you're rich and famous. And like, if he's being this model prisoner that they say he's being, he'll be out in like a year and a half. On the racketeering conspiracy charge, a jury must be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that a defendant was involved in an enterprise among 2 or more people to engage in at least 2 criminal acts affecting interstate commerce. Offenses that may include kidnapping, arson, bribery, forced labor, sex trafficking, and other underlying crimes. For the standalone sex trafficking charge, prosecutors must demonstrate the defendant by force or threat compelled others to commit commercial sex acts in which something of value, such as money, was received. And keep in mind something interesting, and I actually I knew this in my head, but I was reminded of it by a Subway ad for, one of these joke attorneys. But it is so important to remember that sometimes when we're disappointed in the outcome of a case, we should look at the charges and we can ask ourselves, do we think that the legal team asked for the right charges? Because that is key in making sure that someone gets a conviction. You have to bring them up on the proper charges. And so a lot of times, again, especially with murder, I think a lot of times you'll see someone who you think as an everyday person should be convicted or at least accused of first-degree murder, and you'll see the charges brought up, and it's second-degree murder or third-degree murder or manslaughter or something lesser. No, that is not because they're saying, oh, what they did isn't that bad. They're doing that because they understand the law in a way that we don't, and they know they have a much higher likelihood of getting this person to pay for their crimes if the crime that they need to be convicted of is lesser. So I do wonder, again, if these were the only choices of charges that they could get, that Diddy could get brought up on, were there an assortment of lesser things that maybe they would have had more likelihood of success with? Again, I don't know, but just food for thought. During her nearly 5-hour closing argument, Assistant U.S. Attorney Christie...
There is one weird fact I know about this.
Yes.
Specifically relating to the charges.
Mm-hmm.
Only 2 people ever, solo, single person, have caught interstate RICO charges for sex-related crimes. Those 2 people, R. Kelly and P. Diddy.
Interesting.
So the precedent for this was limited at best to convict. It was,
and was R. Kelly convicted of that?
I got to look that up. I don't know.
That's a really interesting point.
I think they threw the book at R. Kelly.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point because, legal precedent, again, just as someone who has just spent a lot of time in court and with court documents, that was something that was talked about consistently between my attorney and I. And it's really, 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 really hard to win a case if there is no legal precedent for it. Obviously, that's why the Supreme Court exists, to set a legal precedent. But that is actually a very interesting fact, Mike. Thank you.
R. Kelly was, in fact, convicted under the RICO charge.
Oh, so that's interesting. So they maybe, I'm guessing they looked at his case and they said, okay, well, they got R. Kelly for this. Maybe we can get Diddy for this as well.
Yeah, on the R. Kelly case, they caught him with exploitation of children, kidnapping, forced labor, violations of the Mann Act, and bribery.
And I think that's what makes R. Kelly's case different, because there were no minor charges for the Diddy case, were there?
As far as I know, no.
Right. And so I think that's kind of the area where there is no remorse once we start dealing with minors. So that made his case a little bit thicker. During her nearly 5-hour closing argument, Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic reminded the jury about various government witnesses who testified about the allegations. She said an ex-assistant of Combs's, Capricorn Clark, I kind of love that name, was subjected to kidnapping and forced labor, while the car of a romantic rival of Combs, the rapper Kid Cudi, was firebombed in an act of arson. A former assistant who testified under the pseudonym Mia and accused Combs of sexually assaulting her multiple times was another example of forced labor, Slavic said. On the 2 sex trafficking counts, Slavic told jurors that they did not need to believe Ventura or another ex-girlfriend who testified under the pseudonym Jane were engaged in sex acts against their will in every instance. The women testified about freak-offs and hotel nights, which were the names for drug-induced sexual encounters with male escorts. They said Combs routinely manipulated them into under threat of releasing recorded videos of the explicit sex acts. So if there was one time, one single freak-off where the defendant knew or recklessly disregarded that Cassie or Jane was participating because of his lies, his threats, or his violence, then that's it, Slavic said. He's guilty. Combs' defense team maintained that he operated a legitimate business and was being unfairly targeted by overzealous prosecutors. Sean Combs has been something that is very, very hard to become, very hard to be, Agnifilo said in his 4-hour closing arguments. He is a self-made, successful Black entrepreneur. While Agnifilo didn't deny that Combs was consumed by bouts of jealousy and that he engaged in angry tirades that involved domestic violence, the women ultimately chose to stay with him. Wow, seems like someone doesn't understand the cycle of abuse at all, but okay. While those in his inner circle had the agency to leave, he said. If racketeering conspiracy had an opposite, it would be their relationship, Agnifilo said of Combs and Ventura, who dated on and off from about 2007 to 2018. I think also like the on and off and like the long span of the relationship probably built a case against Cassie, you know. One key piece of evidence played for the jury repeatedly and frame by frame was security video showing Combs physically assaulting Ventura in a Los Angeles hotel hallway in 2016. She testified that he was angered because she was trying to leave a freak off. We own the domestic violence. We own it. I hope you guys know this. Agnifilo told the jury while denying Combs was a mastermind who conspired with his employees to commit crimes. No matter the outcome of the criminal case, Combs must contend with a slew of lawsuits that have included accusations of rape and sexual assault. Combs, who has denied such allegations, has accused various plaintiffs of pursuing quick paydays, which is always the argument that anyone who's rich and famous uses, like they're trying to get a payday. And well, I don't believe Diddy at all. I mean, like, yeah, I basically, once you are even a little bit rich and a little bit famous, people will try to get a payday from you. Even I've fucking experienced that. So, but it's when you have, especially when you have other celebrities like Cassie able to testify against you, that's not the case. I'm just going to come out and say that's not the case right here for Diddy. All right. Let's see. That's my enemy of the state. Let's go to the wacko mailbag now. I have a couple of items from municipal politics and, you know, various things. Again, I had a very full inbox this week. So people are texting me about politics. Very interesting. Okay, this wacko asked to be kept anonymous because they are currently employed by someone who's related to this. I don't even want to say, but I'm just keeping this anonymous. So the writer says, I work in Piscataway, New Jersey. So much New Jersey gossip. I promise you, I'm not only reading New Jersey stuff. There just happens to be a lot of New Jersey stuff in my inbox, which again, speaking of mafia, if we want to talk about corrupt municipal government, I mean, especially in shore towns like Point Pleasant and shit, the mafia owns the entire beach there. That's why people are like, why do you have to pay to get on the beach in New Jersey? Well, because the mafia owns it. I will say very clean and very nice though.
I reached out to that guy, the mobster mayor.
Oh, yeah, you did?
About an interview for a couple different shows, yours being one of them.
What did he say? Forget about it?
What he said was, let me refer you to my manager, who then asked me about compensation within 2 sentences of saying hello.
Again, the only other fucking, it's always the most comical people who ask about compensation. It's forget about it, mayor, and Paperboy Love Prince are the only people who've asked me about compensation who are supposed politicians. Again, I work in Piscataway. It's first of all, like, anyone in the entertainment business does not get paid for doing any podcast appearances, just so you guys know, as listeners. And it's even crazier for a public servant to ask for money because it is part of their job and their responsibility to publicly convey to people what the fuck they're doing. I work in Piscataway, New Jersey, a town of about 60,000 people. The mayor, Brian Waller, Democrat, has been mayor since 2000. That's right, 2000, 25 years. This is his 7th consecutive term as mayor. Candidates from both parties have opposed him, including a huge campaign in, I believe, 2016 from more progressive Democrats to no avail. As I'm sure you can imagine, this has huge impacts on the whole municipality. Everything just feels stagnant. Many of the other elected officials, including a few council members, have been brought in by Whaler and are also serving consecutive terms. Appointed officials, such as the township lawyer, have gone so far as pushing out other department heads. I can't be more specific because it might reveal the department where I work, but my former boss was pushed out because they butt heads with the mayor. Other township department heads include Public Works, Parks and Rec, Community Center, Public Library, Police, etc. Waller calls all the shots. When you asked for crazy municipal government stories, this immediately came to mind. It's so hard to find news and conduct research on municipal officials. I know before I started my position, there was a lot of pushback against Waller for bringing big businesses into the area and renting them warehouses by cutting big businesses' tax deals. Now, at least publicly, what he does is make biscuits at the grand opening of New Jersey's first Bojangles. He's more mascot than mayor in some ways. And in his defense, even in New York City, I would argue that part of the role of the mayor is actually being a mascot. So if it's part of the role of the mayor in New York City, I would guess it certainly is actually part of the role. Like, you are kind of the face of the city or the town. And that's why, in all my endorsement meetings, I did make the argument that you need to have a certain level of star quality and star power. And that's why we saw, someone from an entertainment business family like Zohran Mamdani absolutely decimate someone like a Brad Lander, who just does not have, he's also older and, so just younger people just tend to have more star power, unless you're like someone who's like Cher or something who has just like a gravitas to them. But when you're young, you got smoother skin, you got more hair, you're usually thinner. That's just like celebrity culture, unfortunately. And there is like celebrity culture, especially these days when so much is on video, and that's where the way people are intaking their news is more visually than on paper. It's going to end up mattering even more if you have good stage presence and are attractive. So I know it sounds crazy, but you do need to go to openings and cut ribbons with huge scissors. That actually is part of your job. I would say for New York City specifically, the three biggest jobs are the mayor are overseeing the city agency, which is extremely important. The NYPD, the public school system. You are allocating the budget. And then, the third is that you are the mascot of the city. I actually say that in, a bit I'm working on. Hope you appreciate this story from your home state. Thanks for all the work you do. I'm a fucker since 2016 and have been a wacko for a few years now too. So thank you so much for writing. Love that. And then we have some municipal drama from Canada. I thought I would talk about this. Again, I think I talked about it last week, the Rob Ford documentary, but Canada has mayors too, baby. So this is from wacko Janice. I think that's how you would say it. Genise. I think it would be Janice. Peterborough, Ontario, Canada. The threat to carve him up like a Thanksgiving turkey was made by the mayor because the councillor joked about the mayor's wife lending him a pickleball paddle. She's some sort of high-ranking pickleball person. Already I'm loving it. Pickleball drama in Canada while discussing a proposed municipal pickleball court project for which the mayor was pro and the councillor anti. And also just, the fact that if you're the mayor and your wife is some prominent pickleballer and what you are dedicating your time and, the area's money to is a pickleball court. That just makes me laugh. There was actually a whole redo done to this area on the East River by my apartment, and one of the things that was done was the addition to pickleball courts, and I just laughed so hard to myself if I didn't want to cry because I was like, again, 100,000 people without houses, and we're building fucking pickleball courts. And let me tell you, I rest assured it's not native New Yorkers who are using pickleball courts. It's a bunch of rich little white boys and girls who just moved here 2 years ago who are pickleball is too white for me. Like, what are we talking about right now? I was actually so angry about this, especially in the neighborhood where I live, because it has been infiltrated by boat shoe people. Again, white people who spend their summers on boats, who went to NYU and their parents paid for all of it. My neighborhood has been infiltrated by boat shoe people, whatever. But I live right on the edge of Alphabet City, which is a space where that still is experiencing a great amount of poverty, is a really cool area, but is an area that definitely is struggling with their income and the affordability crisis. Drug problem for sure. You'll go and people just be tipped over in the middle of the street, and we're spending our time and fucking money building pickleball courts. That's what we think is pressing. That enraged me. Sorry, I just went on a tangent, but that pissed me the fuck off. And then I can't even believe it. Anyway, so this is the news. This is the news article. It says, carve him like a Thanksgiving turkey. This is from globalnews.ca. Ontario mayor apologizes for remark to councillor. The mayor of Peterborough, Ontario, apologized Monday for reportedly telling, and this is from April of last year, telling another city councillor he would carve him like a Thanksgiving turkey during a committee meeting last week. In a statement read aloud during Monday's city council meeting, Mayor Jeff Leal apologized for the remark he reportedly made off microphone to Kuhn. Alex Bierk, during the April 2nd council committee meeting, stated he used intemperate language. Multiple media outlets were covering the meeting, including Global News, which did not capture any audio. However, only one, The Arthur, reported hearing the comment. Bjerk confirmed to the Trent University student newspaper the comment was made. It's not known exactly when the comment was made, but during the meeting, Leal interrupted Bjerk as he spoke about possibly pausing the construction of 16 pickleball courts at Bonnerworth Park. During his comments, Bjerk referenced Leal's wife, Karen? I don't know. It's Caran. I guess you would say that Karen, but then they spell it as regular Karen later in the article, so I don't know. Bjerk said, I'm not against pickleball. Karen Leal's going to lend me her racket. I love it. Leal immediately interrupted and pointed at Bjerk and retorted, that's not fair. Don't mention my wife's name. You crossed the line. And that is something I've heard so many times, like even during the mayoral debates, someone brought up something about Brad Lander's wife, someone brought up something about Zohran Mamdani's wife, and they get so fucking indignant. They're like, don't mention my wife. Don't mention my wife. And it's just like, I'm sorry. If you're running for a very public office, your wife is going to get mentioned. Your husband's going to get mentioned. I would say, yeah, like let's try not to get your kids mentioned if they're minors. But like the family's going to get mentioned because the family's most likely in cahoots with you. We see what Donald Trump is doing. And whether it's positive cahoots or negative cahoots, your family is in cahoots with you. And so I'm sorry, if you're running for public office, your spouse actually is fair game. And maybe that's a hot take, but your spouse is fucking fair game. Your spouse is fair game. We need to know as a public servant who you surround yourself with, and we need to know what job your spouse has and what little special things you might be doing for them. And so the reason you're getting so mad is because you're fucking building 16 pickleball courts because your wife loves pickleball and her pickleball friends want to go play pickleball, and that's probably not the most pressing needs of the goddamn community.
Listen, you're probably right in this case. I always thought it was nobody wants to be the next Rubio. You know what I mean? Like the
Explain more.
So the guy, Trump in the debates was like smack talking Rubio's wife, and he just took it on the chin. Now he's carrying water for the guy. It's like nobody wants to find themselves in that position. So you got to plant the flag early. Don't talk about my wife.
Set a boundary. I see. I mean, and I'm sure, these men are getting in trouble at home. And especially when it's the husband running for office and the wife is the one who has to take the brunt of it, and is most likely supporting their husband through all this shit. I'm sure they're getting an earful at home, as they should. But I hear what you're saying, and that is a good point. But Unfortunately, I think like, yes, when you are pursuing public office, like we need to know what everyone's fucking doing, what everyone's money is doing, what everyone's up to, because it's just too easy to, when you're running for public office, keep your own personal slate clean and then run any dirty numbers or dirty business or dirty stuff through your spouse. It's just way too easy to do that. Again, I mean, we see people even doing it through their parents and shit. Like you can't do that. Leal, after stating to Kuhn, Andrew Beamer, that Bierk was out of line, was heard saying to Bierk, "You'll regret you ever said that." Again, this reads like a soap opera. Bierk, following the meeting, confirmed to author that the "carve him" comment was made. On Monday, Leal apologized to Bierk and to the citizens of Peterborough, reading aloud a prepared statement. On Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024, during a tense and heated debate on the redevelopment plan for Bonnerworth Park. I mean, this is hilarious. I used intemperate language, and I want to apologize to my colleagues, particularly Kuhn, Bierk, and more importantly, to the citizens of Peterborough, Leal said. Husbands, wives, children, and partners are off limits when it comes to public debate. In the heat of the situation, I thought that line was crossed last Tuesday, and I overreacted to Kuhn, Bierk. My words were ill-chosen, and I apologize. I don't regret responding. However, I do regret the way in which I chose to respond. I look forward to working productively with Kuhn, Bierk. I don't know why this is. It's Kuhn period Bierk. Is this some Canadian? This is counselor. I'm like, what the fuck are they fucking writing here? Counselor Bierk. Sorry, guys. That was just me being dumb and not understanding because we don't have that. That's hilarious. We don't have that. We don't have that's not like a thing in the US. So I was like, what the fuck is this? And there was also a bunch of actual real mistakes in this thing, but this is counselor. I'm sorry. That was me being so dumb. Counselor. Sorry. Yeah. And it's like 2 L's. Okay. Sorry. I was very, very confused. This makes much more sense now. Counselor Bierk, my words were ill-chosen and I apologize. I don't regret responding. However, I do regret blah, 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 blah. The Arthur reports it has received a copy of a complaint submitted to the city's integrity commissioner, Guy Giorno, regarding Leal's April 2 comments to Bierk. I was like, who's this third person? Okay. Sorry. That's so funny. See, just goes to show Canada, different world. Thank you for sending that in. Sorry if I confused you guys by not knowing what that they were just shortening counselor, and I thought it was like this new guy named Kuhn. Okay, let's get to Girl. What time is it? Yeah, Girl. So this is also from a wacko. Our first story for Girl. I'm gonna pull it up in Chrome though because it doesn't read in Safari. Oh my God. Can you imagine if I said that? That's the kind of thing, like you can't make one mistake like that. There would be 15 news articles about that. Be like, this idiot doesn't know the shortening of counselor. Okay. So this is from a local newspaper, the San Francisco Gate. And this is from wacko Caitlin, and this is regarding someone challenging Nancy Pelosi, who is out of San Francisco. So ex-AOC chief of staff going after the most powerful woman in Congress. This article is dedicated to Mike. So Sekat Chakrabarti hopes his tech experience and work with iconic progressives can vault him over Pelosi and into Washington, D.C. And Caitlin sent this to me and said a tech millionaire is trying to challenge Nancy Pelosi. So again, it's not like, I know we can be excited that someone is challenging Nancy Pelosi, who, as a reminder, is 85 years old. That being said, I feel like a Silicon Valley millionaire is not who we're looking for when we're saying run for something. But again, you know, it doesn't mean, just because you're a Silicon Valley millionaire doesn't mean you're a bad person. It does, for me, set off a red flag that it's like, why are you all of a sudden interested in the welfare of people? And maybe you've made your millions and now you want to dedicate the rest of your life to public service. It's possible, but obviously we're going to question it a little bit more. All at once, Kat Chakrabarti is a nobody, a Silicon Valley millionaire, and a humble job applicant. I'm not choosing to challenge the most powerful woman in Congress. I am just choosing to challenge my congressional representative in San Francisco, he said last month at Manny's, the famous political venue in San Francisco's Mission District. He was speaking to roughly 120 people during his first public event since announcing he would challenge Representative Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker Emerita, who has represented San Francisco in Congress since 1987 in a primary election next year. So basically, she has represented San Francisco in Congress for almost my entire lifetime. I was born in 1985. So that's almost 40 years. That's really crazy. This is the first time, for his almost his whole lifetime too, because he's the same age as me. This is the first time the 39-year-old who spent the last decade helping recruit and elect progressives to Congress is running on his own. And again, that's great, but we'll see. I mean, he's obviously has the power to do that because of his money, and he just knows a lot of rich people, so easy to fundraise. I think we can't just have this anti-Trump movement, he said at the panel. Right now, the Democrats are going to have a choice. They continue standing for slow, iterative change and the status quo, or are we going to represent an actual vision for rebuilding society? And he's making a good point here, and it's a point we've talked about on the show before, that basically the Democratic platform can't be, we hate Donald Trump. It can't just be no. It has to be, what are we going to provide? And again, I hate to bring it back to the mayoral race here in New York City again, but this is a perfect example, is Andrew Cuomo was running on, these are all the things we're not going to do anymore. We're not going to have crime. We're not going to allow crime. We're not going to do this. It was very negative, as many journalists pointed out, whereas Zohran Mamdani's campaign was like, yes, I know you're feeling bad right now, but things can get better. And this is how my plan for things to get better. So it's just more positive spin, kind of like, similar results, but different spin on it. And just as Barack Obama sold hope and won and is still pretty revered in American culture, even though I kind of was never never big into Barack Obama, because I just felt it was, I kind of just saw, I was like, what are you selling us here? I don't know. But, we'll see. We definitely do need hope. It's not, I don't think it's criminal to sell people hope as long as you're delivering them something afterwards, During an hour-long panel hosted at the iconic Community Cafe, Chakrabarti argued that a change is needed. He said repeatedly with conviction that there is a real coup going on in D.C. and that Democrats aren't doing enough to stop it. He believes established Democrats like Pelosi are ignoring the bigger problems facing Americans, which have led to the authoritarian rise of President Donald Trump. That's the bulk of Chakrabarti's pitch to voters as he works to establish himself as a viable challenger to Pelosi over a year before Californians will cast their ballots. Pelosi has filed paperwork to run in 2026, but has not publicly shared her plans. Regardless, Chakrabarti is positioning himself as a fresh-faced candidate who is in a rush for change. Andrew Dupree, a 35-year-old San Francisco resident, came away from the Manny's event with a sense that Chakrabarti understands the grievances of San Franciscans. He made a great point that people are feeling economic pain. The cost of living is going up. Even in San Francisco, people are struggling, he said. My question is, how are you going to build a coalition of liberals? Chakrabarti's story is one of humble beginnings. He was raised in Fort Worth, Texas, by immigrants from India. His father came to the U.S. with $20 in his pocket, Chakrabarti often says, yet he was able to build a middle-class life off of a single income. That principle is the centerpiece of his campaign, that a hard worker should be able to make a good life. But stories like his father's have been replaced by a modern world where a few people make an ungodly amount of money, While most people can barely make rent, he told the crowd at Manny's. Chakrabarty admits he was one of those ungodly amount of money people. He attended Harvard University, worked briefly on Wall Street, then moved to San Francisco in 2009. A few years later, as a precocious computer programmer, he struck gold as the second engineer ever to join Stripe Incorporated, the multi-billion-dollar payment services platform. And Stripe is what I used. If you donated to my campaign via credit card, you used Stripe. That's how the money got to me. I really hate, oh my God, where did this go? I really hate the inequality of it, he said. I'm proud of what I built, but I didn't work harder than a teacher or a nurse. Eventually, he left Stripe to work under two of the biggest progressive names in politics, Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But is this? Yeah, now I'm sorry. There's so many in these smaller newspapers. There's so many typos. That's why I was saying. I was like, oh, I guess this is just Coon, not counselor. Chakrabarty, but Chakrabarty doesn't want to fit into a box. I mean, I identify as a progressive, I guess. Chakrabarty told San Francisco Gate a few days later during a lunchtime interview at his home campaign headquarters in Dubose Triangle, the quaint and colorful San Francisco neighborhood. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, where he lives with his wife and kids. But it's really hard to know what that word means these days. He is wearing a flannel and jeans, and his campaign manager and longtime colleague, Zach Exley, is sitting next to him. Chakrabarty is slightly hunched forward, finishing a salad from a nearby cafe. I really do sort of dislike having all the labels, Chakrabarty continued, just because I want to campaign on the actual stuff I want to do, the actual solutions. Those ideas, he says, include universal health care and childcare, as well as scrapping dirty money in politics. So, same socialist platform, all standard progressive ambitions upheld by his former bosses. I guess wanting to get rid of money in politics makes me a progressive, he laughed. He adds, there's some new stuff I'm also trying to run on, which he says involves focusing on how the government actually executes and makes stuff happen and builds stuff. I am not sure what bucket that really falls in. I think it's just kind of practical. He has a vision to build a whole movement and rebuild the economy, which he likens to Franklin D. Roosevelt's post-Great Depression programs under the New Deal. He knows he's running for Congress, not president, right? One congressperson cannot rebuild the economy. Okay. At Manny's, he referenced the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, a 1932 government agency that helped restore public faith in the economy as a guiding light for his own vision. Yeah, you can then, pitch an idea to create a new. Yeah, I mean, you could pitch these ideas, but it's a lot of things that have to be handled below this. But again, as I said at the top of the show, people like big ideas, and big ideas are sexy, and big ideas make you want to go out and knock on doors, and big ideas make you want to donate money. And I don't want to ever discourage people from dreaming big dreams and having big ideas. But just make sure that if you are running a campaign on a big idea, that there's a clear pathway to that idea, and that people, I guess, be transparent about these small steps, the many, many, many small steps it will take to bring that big idea to fruition. And again, it's hard because people have a really limited attention span. So you kind of just have to tell them what the end result is going to be. But I really think if you're not clear about the exact pathway that you're going to get there, the steps that it's going to take, and being cognizant of celebrating the small milestones that you reach on the way to this big idea, that people are going to soon lose faith in big ideas. The way I imagine this going is I'm trying to pitch these big ideas as the way the Democratic Party should be operating. Sorry, again, there's no oxygen in this basement. He says between bites, the Democratic Party is so underwater right now. The only way voters are going to trust it again is if a whole new movement takes over. And I So I agree that the Democratic Party needs bigger ideas, but certainly the solution is not promising big things and then continuing to deliver nothing. So I guess that's my fear here. He has said he will largely self-fund his campaign and will not accept money from corporate political action committees, PACs. He said he is prepared to match Pelosi, who is a fundraising juggernaut, to make it a fair race. As Exley tells it, Chakrabarty got his foot in the progressive politics door almost accidentally when he joined Bernie Sanders' 2016 presidential campaign as a lowly programmer. No one knew he was some Silicon Valley big shot, said Exley, who at the time was a senior Sanders advisor. He recruited Chakrabarty to work on software tools to help boost Sanders' campaign. That was, he said, before Stripe totally took over the world. After his stint on the Sanders campaign, Chakrabarty co-founded a political organization called Brand New Congress, later renamed Justice Democrats, with Exley. Their ambition was to recruit progressive candidates to Congress. Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat from New York, emerged as one of the only successful recruits. And again, if you're interested in that, you can watch the whole documentary, which is certainly what I did as part of my research to running for mayor. Some people have emailed me or reached out to me, being like, what are the tools? What are the resources and whatever? And it's like, I got to be honest, like if this was comedy, I would have more resources than you do. But, in December, I just Googled all this stuff myself, and I reached out and I put together a team based on the people that I know. And I really don't know anyone in politics. It lucked out that Christina's manager's brother works for a political advising firm. But outside of that, people just signed on to my campaign because they were interested in what I was doing. And again, like a lot of people who love politics will work for, not free, but they'll work for a pay cut for a grassroots candidate they really believe in, which I really love that sentiment. It's similar to artists in that, we'll do big money gigs to pay the rent, but then we'll do some things for cheaper if it scratches an artistic itch. And it seems like the same does go in politics. I have so many negative notes for politics, but I thought that was really cool. So yeah, I mean, like you got to do the work the same as I did the work. Literally use Google and ChatGPT and ask it questions and say, like, how do I do this? Wherever you're running, your local government website will have a ton of information that is publicly available to you, how to run for office. Like, God bless America. That is one of the good things. It's very accessible, what you need to do and the steps you need to take, the paperwork you need to download. And there will be shady parts, not at the very beginning, though. There shouldn't be any shady parts. To get signed up, it's going to be a lot of financial paperwork that you're going to have to file. You might need an accountant to help you, depending on how complex your finances are. Mine are complex just because I'm an artist, so I have a lot of money coming in from it's like every fucking comedy club sends you, paperwork at the end of the year. And then I watched a lot of documentaries and read a lot of stuff about what other people did. That's how I learn pretty much everything I do, is just watch documentaries and read books about other people who did it before me. That is the best way to do things. Watch people whose careers you admire and do what they did, but put your own personal spin on it and learn from their mistakes. I watched the Anthony Weiner doc. I watched the Ed Koch doc. I watched Knock Down the House about AOC. I watched all this content and I read a ton of old news articles and I read about previous races in my area. So you want to read about previous races in your area, what the constituents are looking for, what worked for people in the past and what didn't. I mean, again, there's nothing secret that I know. And any secrets I know I have told you on this podcast along the way, right? Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat from New York, emerged as one of the only successful recruits after Ocasio-Cortez's shock victory in 2018, in which she won a primary against Representative Joe Crowley, who was the number 4 Democrat in the caucus at the time and a possible successor to Pelosi as Speaker. Chakrabarty went to work as Ocasio-Cortez's chief of staff. He started to make a splash on Capitol Hill, including butting heads with Pelosi. In July 2019, Chakrabarty criticized moderate Democrats for supporting border funding with harsh words on Twitter, saying they were hell-bent to do the black and brown people today what the old Southern Democrats did in the 40s, Vox reported at the time. Pelosi later scolded Democrats and their staffers about keeping their opinions off Twitter. A whole bunch of the caucus was upset, and I was really mad about it. Chakrabarty told San Francisco Gate about why he spoke up about the funding. Some thought the dust-up with the caucus leader prompted Chakrabarty's departure from Ocasio-Cortez's staff the next month, but Chakrabarty told SF Gate that the plan was always for me to leave after he helped the freshman congresswoman launch the Green New Deal. He added that his family was expecting a child, noting it so happened Pelosi got mad at me about some tweets at the same time. He moved back to San Francisco in 2019 and has been working since for the New Consensus, a think tank that has promoted the Green New Deal and other economic renewal projects. Still, he says trying to make things change in Congress requires pushing a little bit, ruffling some feathers. To get his name out there, Chakrabarty has hosted small events around San Francisco, including the April panel at Manny's and the weekly town hall meetings he holds with potential voters over Zoom from his Dubose Triangle home. He knows he has ground to make up against not only Pelosi, who has a nearly 40-year head start, but also any other challengers who may emerge if she chooses not to run. And I think there will be a lot of challengers, especially if she chooses not to run. And again, especially with things like Zohran Mamdani winning the primary after polling at 1%. Like, you know, the head of Run for Something said she saw like tens of, like, I think, what was it, like 11,000 new applications or something like the night after Mamdani won. It was crazy. That could include California State Senator Scott Wiener, a Democrat from San Francisco, and a former city supervisor who is widely known in California, but not far beyond state borders. He has said he won't run against Pelosi, but if the 85-year-old decides to retire, he'll likely join the race. Others question if Pelosi will tap her daughter, Christine, for the post. Becoming a household name will prove difficult for Chakrabarty, said Eric Kingsbury, a political consultant in the Bay Area. He notes she is uniquely qualified and has deep ties to her city. He notes oh my God, all these small town articles have so many mistakes in them. We're talking about this guy, Chakrabarty. It's a he, unless he transitioned mid-article. I struggle to see an appetite for someone who's run against her. Or did they go back to talking about Pelosi? Maybe that's what they did. I don't fucking know. Anyway, I struggle to see an appetite for someone to run against her. He told SF Gate, now we're talking about Pelosi. San Francisco is a small town masquerading as a big city. I have heard great things, but I have not seen him around at all. I'm not sure that he has the familiarity with these communities that the other candidates might bring. Okay. His appearance at Manny's helped at least a few potential voters see his potential. Philip Dupree, the twin brother of Andrew Dupree, said it's less crazy for Sykott to run than Wiener, arguing that an incumbent Democrat running against Pelosi would cause a bigger political rift within the party. With Chakrabarty, at least voters can hear an alternate message without it splintering the existing caucus, Philip Dupree said. Back at Chakrabarty's makeshift campaign office, which is a one-bedroom apartment on the bottom floor of his multi-family home. Hope he's marked that an in-kind contribution. Otherwise, he's going against policy. The candidate is preparing to do more outreach. It's a stripped-down space with a couch, TV, bed, desk, and computer monitor with a large LED light panel that is set up for Zoom calls with voters. Says the second floor of his home is owned and inhabited by Chakrabarty's childhood best friend. He and his family live on the third floor. Chakrabarty was running late for this particular session. He swiftly answered the rest of SF Gate's questions before hopping on his swivel chair and greeting potential voters on his screen. One participant, a man who introduced himself as David, spoke bluntly. "You're not just running against any congressperson. You may be running against the congressperson," he said. "How will you defeat Madam Speaker?" Chakrabarty smiled. "You're right. There are obviously a lot of people who voted for her for years. I'm not trying to run to be the next career politician and sit there for 40 years, he said, talking to the computer screen. I really want change." And it's so interesting now watching all these young new races, including my own, because now we're all starting to use the same language as each other. And I'm like, I just, I want us to all, like, we there needs to be a unified vision, certainly, for what the left needs to become. So it shouldn't really be like wildly different, but saying things like, I really want change, status quo, career politician. Even by the second half of my own campaign, I was like, if one more person says status quo to me, it's over. It's over. I was taking status quo off of all my palm cards. I was like, enough is enough. Fucking crazy. All right. Let's keep on moving and grooving. Let's get into Corinne Fisher's party topic of the week. We haven't done one of these in a while, and I saw something from Vice that I thought would be perfect for this. I don't know if we still have this drop mic where I have to sing myself.
Not in this package.
Not in this package. Okay, we're in a different studio, but I'll do a little acapella for you. It's my party and I'll cry if I want to, cry if I want to, cry if I want to. You would cry too if it happened to you. Do, 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 do. That's my favorite part. Okay, so Corinne Fisher's party topic of the week is from Vice. It's about cults. We love cults here on Without a Country. Just seemed very interesting and seemed like something that we should all be aware of because, again, we're all one moment away. We're all one broken heart away from joining a cult. This is from Vice.com. In England, parents are moving their children into a doomsday cult with a man calling himself the new pope. I guess it also could be worse for us here as well. The Ahmadi religion of peace and light and its leader, Abdullah Hashem, are converting thousands into believers from an old orphanage in Crewe. According to Islamic legend, a messianic figure known as the Mahdi will appear before Judgment Day to vanquish injustice and tyranny and usher in an era of peace across the world before the apocalypse. Abdullah Hashem, a beanie-wearing American Egyptian running what can only be described as a quasi-Islamic doomsday cult based out of a former orphanage in the north of England. And honestly, good for Islam, because I feel like we always see this stuff in Christianity, and that is absolutely not inclusive. So I'm glad that we're seeing some inclusivity in doomsday cults. Claims to be that Mahdi, and for good measure, the new pope. If you want to join him, you'll have to cash in your home and give him all your money. Duh. We are looking for people who are willing to sell their homes and to come and be amongst the community and to follow me and to not waver or want to leave once they've come. Hashem says in one piece of in-house propaganda from earlier this year, wearing his black beanie so low it casts a dark shadow over his eyes. More bluntly, he compares himself to Jesus and says he wants people that will love him and be willing to sacrifice it all to establish a divine, just state. His organization is called the Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light, or Aropal for short. It's a doomsday cult for the social media age, with members likely running into thousands worldwide. The organization is flooding the internet with an avalanche of slickly produced yet chilling content from a ramshackle broadcast studio based out of its grade 2 listed red brick mansion in Crewe, Cheshire, 35 miles from Manchester. Accepting this covenant is the only thing that will save you from the punishment that is about to come down on mankind, Hashem said late last year. COVID was merely the beginning of that punishment and a precursor. More plagues and diseases will be unearthed and unleashed upon you. He is the most important person in the world right now. That was like the bold statement that they took out. I was told I was the reincarnated Zeus, a former member who left Europol last year told Vice. When I visited them in Sweden, there was a miracle of thunder. Over the span of a decade, he sent Hashem all the money he could to support the cause, opening additional businesses and even taking out a bank loan for more than $200,000. I needed to trust in whatever he was doing, the ex-devotee recalls. Then he joined the group in Crewe, a small town in the north of England, best known for a football team that's been embroiled in a child sexual abuse scandal. Claim to fame. He's asking for absolute submission, he says. I was tricked and scammed and threatened when I was leaving. Those who uproot their lives to join Europol in person speak openly about the need for submission to succeed within the organization, and unmarried women sometimes find future husbands waiting within its membership, according to video testimonials. At least a dozen children are reportedly being homeschooled at the HQ in Crewe. Can you see if you can find any of those video testimonials while I'm reading this, Mike? Male members, including the group's security guards, wear dark beanies covering their entire foreheads, almost obscuring their vision, copying Hashem's dubious style choices. His look has been branded a 2015 Zara starter pack by online jesters. Footage also shows large groups of men eerily punching their fists into the air during his sermons. What did I tell you about a fist pump to the air earlier in the show? Which he delivers in a room known as the Basilica on an elevated podium in front of apocalyptic artwork. One bizarre 2022 video posted to the organization's YouTube channel, which currently has 33,000 subscribers. Angel number. No, just... Sorry, I can't. I was doing a whole deep dive on the origin of angel numbers. And just so you guys know, it was created in like the fucking 80s by some woo-woo bitch. So again, like angel numbers is just one of those things that have always bothered me. And I was like, let me look up where the hell this is. And there's absolutely based in just a completely made up meaning. Angel numbers might as well be Scientology. I'm so sorry if you have them tattooed to you.
I have some of those video testimonials.
Okay, let's go.
From TikTok.
Oh, from TikTok. Yeah. Oh my God. Well, that's like that garden cult that I watched a documentary about, and they were all big on TikTok. Do one that looks really weird. Oh, yes, this bitch. She needed a cult.
I'm Caroline, and I used to be an agnostic. I wasn't really sure if there is a God because I didn't find that religion made sense. And I also saw so much corruption happening in the name of religion and so many crimes committed in the name of religion. But then I found the Ahmadi religion of peace and light. And for the first time, someone was actually logically able to explain to me how history always repeats itself and why religion actually makes sense. And at the same time, I used to feel that religion was really dead and not really practiced with spirit. But in the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, I found a living messenger of God, and that is Abba Sadiq alayhi salam.
Oh, no. It's still wild to me after all the documentaries that have been on Netflix and HBO that people still think that we are finding living embodiments of God in 2025. I honestly, like, it's almost like adults believing in, like, I'm almost jealous of you that you have either been scarred so badly by the world or not scarred badly enough by the world that you still have hope that you can find the embodiment of God here walking on 2 feet. Really, really powerful stuff. Anyway, so this YouTube channel has 33,000 subscribers, is titled Purifying the Camp, and tells the tale of a devotee who had a miscarriage after her husband, the prospective father, was unfaithful. For me, this was a miracle, the woman says. With multiple YouTube channels, content in 7 languages, and dozens of social media accounts, the organization's reach and influence is growing even as it continues to operate at the extreme fringes of society. Recent video footage shows a small group of apparent members unveiling a banner in Vatican City, declaring Hashem as a prophet chosen by God. They were swiftly apprehended by police. Vice first became aware of Aropal through a source who got chatting to a couple of members at an ayahuasca ceremony in the U.S., of course. And again, like, I'm not saying woo-woo stuff isn't real. I'm into it myself. But just as mainstream religions like Catholicism, Christianity, Judaism often become places where really bad stuff can fester because you go there because you're vulnerable. You go there because you want change. You go there because you're experiencing grief. You go there because your life is not going the way you want it to. You are seeking some kind of change, most likely, whether you're trying to access spirituality or religion. So just keep in mind, when you are going to those spaces, I know you are often at your most vulnerable, but you also have to be your most on guard, because it is a perfect place to be taken advantage of. To be taken advantage of sexually, to be taken advantage of monetarily, to be taken advantage of by brainwashing. Like, you are just primed and ready. So just know that. And again, I'm not trying to scare you out of like seeking refuge in religion, but no, bad people prey on the vulnerable, and vulnerable people often gravitate towards religion because nothing else in the quote real world has worked. That's not a knock against religion. That's just what it is. The group ticks every box to qualify it as a cult, says cult expert and independent journalist B. Schofield, a leader who claims to be a prophet living with the followers who've sold their homes to join the cause. Check. Numerous testimonials of miracles, such as resurrections and the curing of diseases. Check. Claims that the world is ending, that aliens are secretly controlling U.S. presidents, as well as more nefarious claims associated with the secretive organization and its leader, who is widely adored by his acolytes. Check, check, check. Aropal says it is a peaceful and progressive religion that supports gender equality and universal human rights, highlighting that its members have been persecuted in some Muslim-majority countries that consider their beliefs heretical. Meeting the man of God in the flesh, one female follower told the in-house media team, "It's something I can't describe, but it was the most beautiful experience of my life. I'll never forget it." I need to meet this guy. I fucking need to meet this guy and see what kind of an aura he has. She added, "He is to me the most important person in the world right now, dear God. There's no other way to support God other than to come and support you," a female devotee tells Hashem in one clip from May 2024, after he assures them he has descended from the Prophet Muhammad and urges them to carry their cross on their back like me. Followers unable to join the group and crew typically post social media videos pledging allegiance to the Mahdi, saying, "Upon this I shall live, upon this I shall die, and upon this I shall be resurrected again." The clips are promptly posted to the group's TikTok account, which has 88,700 followers and operates out of its crew-based media HQ, which apparently also supplies content to 2 satellite TV channels, one broadcasting to the Middle East and the other to Africa. We're making sure that people out there who have access to the internet can hear the message from Hashem, another devotee says in the behind-the-scenes video. We are having a very strong and steady response from our viewers. There are questions over local business interests that Aropal may be pursuing in the UK after allegations of dubious practices in other countries where the cult has settled. Registered in the U.S., it reports assets of $4.5 million in 2023. Hashem and his right-hand man, Joseph McGowan, have been on a truly remarkable journey. They were once filmmakers who themselves gained media attention for exposing an alleged alien-worshipping sex cult back in 2006. And it seems they were inspired by it. What happened between then and now is unclear, but it seems they drank some foul-tasting Kool-Aid, got lost in a bit of a YouTube tailspin, then developed dual cases of extreme main character energy. Or they were filmmakers, they were struggling because it's very hard to make it as a filmmaker, but they fucking love attention still. And they, looked into this cult and they're like, they were able to see all the ways that the cult wasn't culty enough. And they're like, well, what if we just did that and made it better and monetized it? And then you could be the most famous person in the world. Oh my God. This is so crazy. Hashem. Also, if I have to hear one more time how many people, like even in cults now, we're worried about Instagram followers. Is there no respite anywhere? I thought that's a cult is the one place where you don't have to worry about Instagram followers. And that's the most appealing thing about a cult, to be honest. Hashem, who has 53,000 followers on Instagram. I mean, a cat could get that. I got to look up this guy. What is Hashem? Oh my God. Hashem. What's his first name again? I can't even remember his first name. The Mahdi. All right, well, I maybe pull that up. Hashem, who has 53,000 followers on Instagram, originally founded the group in Egypt, but following the Arab Spring, they moved to Sweden in 2017, where they were raided by authorities and judged to be a cult. I'm actually surprised they got away with that in Egypt. This drove them on into the UK, the last bastion of religious freedom. Europol draw followers from across Europe, the Americas, and the wider Middle East, where local sects have formed, following the same Gnostic heretical ideology under the authority of bishops appointed by Hashem. He sees a black cat. He sees this is a jinn, a supernatural Islamic genie spirit. He says this is a jinn. Another former follower wrote on a blog after leaving the group. He sees a cloud of smoke. He says this is a jinn or angels. If we see a satellite moving at night in the sky, he says it is a star that he moved himself. I mean, so again, guys, using our critical thinking, right? We're all sitting back laughing at this article. But like, if you continue to see things as signs, or, you know, messages from the universe. And again, I sometimes do think some things are legitimate, messages from the universe. But if everything you see is a message, and if every number you see is a sign, and if everything is, is a message, at a certain point, it's like, just think like, do you think that the universe has that many personal messages for you? I just really don't think it does. And how are you less, crazy than this fucking guy who thinks he's God on Earth? Despite the far-fetched claims, which also include a theory that a species of giant rabbits who wear clothes and speak are in control of a faraway planet, the group has been subject to some fringe scholarship that has lent it a degree of legitimacy. Hashem is part of the esoteric tradition of Islam, believing in reincarnation, including of humans into animals and even rocks and stones, and karma, and also in the possible transmigration of souls either before or after death from one body to another, reads one paper co-authored by academics from Italy and Poland. Today, believers in the UK form a community that is a germ and an announcement of the divine just state. As the first Christians and the first Muslims did, the believers share all their properties in common under the stewardship of the leader, keeping only what is needed for a subsistence as private property and follow his directions. But when members require anything more than what is needed to literally survive, they might be left disappointed. They preach goodness, but spiritual manipulation is very common, alleges another former devotee. He would ask the believers to donate everything, but when we needed a small financial help, they denied. They have no mercy for their soul family. The group is very much open to new members. However, on June 13th, 2 senior members fronted a video full of references to satanic and demonic forces and urged Palestinians to leave the Holy Land and join Hashem. All they need to do in order to make God happy with them and reach salvation, a follower who called herself Alexandra al-Mahdi said, is to accept the Mahdi and be guided by him. It's unclear if there is enough space to house many more members than the 100 or so already living and working for free in the former orphanage in Crewe. But the matter of whether Hashem is the Antichrist or not is one some Christian YouTubers are already debating. One recent video, which has gained more than 750,000 views, warns that it could all be a CIA psyop. Either he's a delusional cult leader, he is the Antichrist, or he is who he claims to be and he's telling the truth. Guest Kwaku told the Ward radio show on June 6th. He's saying he's the chosen one of Islam right now. A lot of Protestants and Christians on YouTube are freaking out and are saying this is the Antichrist. We think the Antichrist is wearing a beanie? And he's leaning into the meme, like holding the podium with the camera angle up with the red background, all in black. There have been more menacing online critiques, including some which have appeared to threaten the use of violence against Hashem and his acolytes. In materials provided by the organization's lawyers, figures appear to have attempted to break into the crew compound over the past 2 years. In March, Amnesty International condemned the arrest of 4 Aropal members in Egypt who now face dubious charges of joining a group established in violation of the law and constitution. Members have also been persecuted in Algeria for denigrating Islam. Okay, yeah, honestly, I would think this. In Iraq, where devotees have suffered repeated imprisonment and government raids, gunned militia attacks on their homes, and prominent religious leaders calling for them to be killed. And in Turkey, where they have been labeled heretics and infidels. However, in the eyes of his followers, Hashem is the Mahdi, the last divinely guided savior before the end of days. To critics and ex-members, he's a manipulative cult leader preying on the vulnerable with a potent mix of spiritual absolutism, esoteric fantasy, and social media savvy. That last part, LOL, for real. Whether he's a prophet, a con man, or something even more dangerous, one thing is for sure. In a world rife with uncertainty, online disinformation, and longing for meaning, Hashem is getting at least enough power and attention to boost his ego and his coffers, and the consequences, both spiritual and material, are all too real for those who may fall under his spell. As far as Hashem is concerned, he's convinced that he is awakening the masses. You can tell when somebody is overtaken by one of these species because their eyes will be off, he said in a video last year. This is one of the easiest ways that somebody can identify if somebody is possessed or is inhabited by an extraterrestrial mind or consciousness, or if the person is a shapeshifter. Okay. In a statement, the organization told Vice, the Ahmadi religion of peace and light is a peaceful and progressive religion based on Shia Islam, but which believes in equality between men and women and supports human rights for all. It is transparent and open and treats its family members as thousands can attest. It is opposed by fundamentalist movements and Islamic governments and is recognized as a persecuted religion by European and U.S. governments, the UN, and Amnesty International. It operates entirely lawfully and for the benefit of its members and its mission. Any suggestion of unlawful behavior is categorically untrue. I would say that the minute someone says categorically untrue is the minute you know they're lying to you. And the Aropal is not aware of any such investigations or complaints. I mean, it's giving Scientology, is it not? Wild, wild. That is my party topic of the week. We are moving forward with more girl, though, now. Quick update from the White Coat Waste Project. Again, I do try to give the Trump administration their flowers when they are due. If you remember, the White Coat Waste Project is an animal rights group. We had someone from White Coat Waste Project on the show many moons ago. And this is a taxpayer-funded, they claim they're not right-leaning, but from, my research, they are right-leaning. But again, conservatives do often do many good things for animal rights. So I can't say that that is merely a left-leaning thing. Again, I would say 90% of dog rescue is done by Republicans. Not that much, but a lot of it is done by Republicans. So this is just a blog update from their own website. It said, following through on its commitment from earlier this year, President Donald Trump's Environmental Protection Agency is taking action to cut wasteful animal tests and retire lab survivors. And this is a statement from Anthony Bellotti, president and founder of the White Coat Waste Project, reinstating the EPA's animal testing phase out and its lab animal retirement policy has been a top priority for white coat waste since day one of the new Trump administration. We applaud President Trump and EPA Administrator Zeldin for keeping their promise to taxpayers and pet owners. White Coat Waste worked with the first Trump administration to eliminate tests on dogs, rabbits, and all other mammals by 2035 and to retire animal testing survivors. When the Biden administration secretly revoked the 2035 deadline and killed rabbits slated for retirement, we blew the whistle, not the legacy animal groups who stayed silent while the killing resumed behind closed doors. White Coat Waste led the only bipartisan campaign that united congressional Republicans and Democrats to pass legislation directing the EPA to restore its phase-out timeline and retirement plans. From the beginning of the Trump administration to today, White Coat Waste has been leading the campaign to cut EPA's wasteful spending and to retire EPA's lab survivors. We're proud of our hard-fought win, and we won't stop until the last animal is out. Keep in mind, this is from their own website, so it will have all that bias. They are funded by a lot of Republicans, so it does not surprise me that they would post statements that are celebrating the Trump administration. But I mean, they do genuinely care for animals. So the part, what the Trump administration is doing cannot, I don't think, would be represented as fake on their own website. And again, I do try to pepper in something positive that Trump does every now and again, because that is what I want this show to be. Sometimes it is hard to find something, but I saw that and I said, I need to present this to you. All right, let's skip ahead a little bit. There was a lot of Supreme Court rulings today. This is an op-ed about some of those rulings from MSNBC.com, how Democrats can weaponize the Supreme Court's recent rulings. They need to force the court's hand by using the conservative majority's supposedly neutral rules to push their own agenda. This is from July 1st, which is yesterday, by David S. Cohen, a professor of law at Drexel University's Thomas R. Klein School of Law. In a string of cases Friday, the conservative justices on the Supreme Court handed the Republican Party win after win. The court restricted nationwide injunctions against President Donald Trump's order on birthright citizenship, greatly hindering the powers of lower federal courts to constrain the president. It allowed parents to opt their kids out of public school education that offended their religious upbringing, and it let the state of Texas require age verification before anyone looks at online porn. There is no question that each of these cases is a significant victory for conservatives in the short term. However, each also gives liberals an opening to try to accomplish their policy goals, but only if they are willing to be aggressive and break norms they've previously wanted to maintain. First, in the birthright citizenship case, the Supreme Court's 6 Republican-appointed justices addressed the procedural question, not the issue of whether the president's order rejecting the idea of birthright citizenship is unconstitutional, even though it clearly is under the 14th Amendment and federal statutory law. On the procedural issue, the court held that lower federal court orders stopping the president's unlawful actions could apply only to the people who brought those cases. In other words, even if a president issues a plainly unconstitutional order, all lower courts can do is provide relief to the individuals who had the foresight and resources to sue in federal court. The order cannot apply to everyone else in the country. Yes, there are some exceptions. Cases can be brought as class actions, meaning a small number of people can bring the case on behalf of all the other people in the country like them. But the court also has spent the past 2 decades making such cases harder to bring. Also, states might be able to sue on behalf of their citizens and get nationwide relief under the theory that a citizen of, say, New Jersey travels to other states and needs protection there. However, several justices have been skeptical of cases brought on behalf of others, so the future viability of such a strategy is unknown. And you'll often see, So they have the ACLU nationwide, but then you also have like the ACLU of New York or the ACLU of New Jersey, whatever. So you could see the ACLU take on a case on that on a statewide level. But again, if there's no precedent, sometimes it's tough. And also, many judges are just as corrupt as politicians. Finally, never shy about giving itself more power, the Supreme Court said it can issue nationwide injunctions. However, the court's holding against universal injunctions from lower court judges is now the law of the land, and as a legal rule in theory, this decision should apply in all cases regarding universal injunctions, not just cases brought against Republican policies. Justice Sonia Sotomayor recognized this in her dissenting opinion. Today, this is a quote, today, the threat is to birthright citizenship. Tomorrow, a different administration may try to seize firearms from law-abiding citizens or prevent people of certain faiths from gathering to worship. Justice Sotomayor's tit-for-tat warning was directed at the justices in the majority, but could also be seen as an invitation to Democrats willing to push boundaries. And that's what this article is kind of saying. It's just like, oh yeah, you want to play games, Republicans? We could play dirty too on the left. The next Democrat in the Oval Office, or even Democrats now in charge, I think we just need a madman or a mad woman on the left. And this is why, I kind of offered myself as tribute because you need someone who's willing to be a little bit crazy. And I think I can give that. I think I can give unwell. I think I have been giving unwell. Yes, Michael.
I'm just wondering what you would call it if you were to weaponize the court system against a political opponent, grant yourself undue powers due to a overstated quote unquote rebellion at the Capitol. Go on down the list at every single policy that happened from January 2021 to 2024. And you'll see where a lot of Trump's executive power is coming from.
You're talking about Joe Biden?
I mean, Joe Biden as a figure, sure.
Right.
But I mean, the greater Democratic Party that took away a primary from its voters. Like that, whatever that arm of government is, those are the ones who are calling the shots to, turn January 6th into the most tragic day in American history since 9/11.
I mean, it wasn't good, Mike.
It wasn't good. I'm not disagreeing, but transferring those kind of emergency powers to the executive branch as a result has only allowed, 4 years later, now Trump has all those same powers.
Well, Trump is also using, he's doing some good research, and he's using some things that also presidents haven't used in a long time or ever sometimes. But
it's almost like we should never give them more power because
I agree. And also we also just shouldn't leave things on the books and assume that people are going to come into power in good faith, basically. And that goes for the right and the left. And I would certainly, especially after what I've been through this year, never make the case that Democrats are not as equally as corrupt as Republicans. They just go about it in different ways, I would say. A lot of times their strategies or the way they present themselves is just kind of a little bit different. The Republicans are a little bit more show ponies, and the Democrats are a little bit more, secret conversations, shifting money in offices kind of a thing. The Republicans do the R. Kelly approach to crime, which is I'm going to sing a song about it in your face and see if you can call my bluff. The next Democrat in the Oval Office, or even Democrats now in charge of state governments, can look at the Supreme Court decision and take new actions, knowing that lower courts shouldn't have the power to issue nationwide or statewide injunctions stopping them. A healthcare directive promoting reproductive freedom, an executive order for giving student loans, a state initiative that restricts gun sales, a vaccination requirement that some religious people object to, an environmental directive that might infringe on some businesses' claimed rights. After Friday's decision, even if these policies are challenged before very conservative federal judges, those judges shouldn't have the power to stop these Democratic actions beyond just the parties to the case, no matter how unlawful or unconstitutional these judges believe them to be. Liberals can apply the same thinking to the Supreme Court's ruling about LGBTQ plus books and religious exemptions. In that case, the conservative majority said that schools that teach books that burden parents' religious beliefs violate the Constitution's guarantee of free exercise of religion. In order to avoid this, schools must offer kids an opt-out so they aren't forced to learn about gay marriage or trans people. Critics of the court's decision, and I mean, this is interesting. I mean, because it's like I didn't really learn about like feminism, so like it I'm certainly not saying like you know. I think like there are people who are trying to like take, books out of school when there's even a gay a character or something. But like, besides like the very, very, very basics of sex, we didn't learn anything about any other type of people in my public school education. It's not like it wasn't inclusive, it just wasn't there.
Yeah, but that was quite some time ago. Not like
for sure. No, for sure. So I'm curious to see like what the curriculum looked like. And I mean, again, my mother is a teacher of middle school children. I mean, and it's like, what class are they learning about this in? I mean, she's an English teacher, so they're not learning about it in an English class. I mean, she would be under the umbrella of like, say one of the books that they were reading as a class had a specific theme in it, but beyond that, she wouldn't. I'll ask her. I don't know. Critics of the court's decision worry that parents might cite their faith to push back against books that include depictions of interracial marriage, women in the workplace, or evolution. But liberals can have beliefs grounded in religion too, which means they too can throw a monkey wrench into the system on behalf of their liberal agenda. For instance, schools around the country are adopting Baby Olivia videos to promote anti-abortion views. A religious family who believes bodily autonomy and women's rights are central to their religion can object and force the school to create an opt-out process. Finally, there is the age verification case involving online porn. In this case, the conservative justices said that while adults have the right to view pornography, minors don't. Thus, Texas is allowed to put what the majority of the court viewed as a minimal burden on adults, the online age verification process, in order to stop minors from viewing porn, even though some adults viewed the process as violating their privacy. Well, and it's also like this one was interesting because I think people were confused about why this was like a Republican view, like a viewpoint, because it seemed like minors shouldn't be viewing porn. But it's also like this is on beer websites and stuff too. Like anyone who's old enough who knows to look for porn knows how to put in a fake birthday. So it's kind of like just a waste of everyone's time. Once again, liberals can play this game as well. For instance,
with this new thing, you need to like actually put in your ID and verify that you're who you say you are.
Oh, you need to scan in an ID?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's missing from a lot of the articles.
Yeah.
And so this is like they're afraid that people are going to start making a list of people who view porn websites. Which that clears a lot up, because I was like, what the fuck are we talking about?
This
here?
is odd to me that this is a right talking point, because it feels like, I get that it's like quote unquote everything in the name of child safety, right? But you're literally just giving your data away to giant tech corporations. That feels very anti-right wing.
Right. But I think it goes into their more conservative lifestyle that they're selling now. And anyone who wants to access it, who works for government, they'll figure out a way around it. But for the rest of us, they'll just be making a list of pervs or something.
Right. Like, that's my thing is like, okay, at what point are we hitting like the Christian conservative politician with like, oh yeah, so then why do I see you on,
sure.
xnxx.com?
Sure. And again, this is a huge breach of privacy. And like, that's interesting because again, I've seen so much, like I'm reading this and seeing so much coverage online, and I'm like, and it was my understanding, the way they were explaining it, that it was like the same way as the beer websites. But if you're actually scanning an ID, I mean, yes, that's a wild breach of privacy. Sure, some or all of these actions might not survive the court's eventual scrutiny. Each of the doctrines are at issues in these cases, and hypotheticals have exceptions and complicated sub-rules. Moreover, if the Supreme Court doesn't care about law and cares only about furthering a conservative ideological agenda, it will find a way to rule against liberal causes and politicians while ruling for conservatives. But Democrats and liberals need to force the court's hand by using these supposedly neutral rules to push their own agenda. The court may be tilted ideologically against them, but that doesn't mean giving up ahead of time. Instead, they should use the tools given to them to accomplish their policy goals and dare the Supreme Court to display blatant hypocrisy by stopping them. Okay, and then the last.
Oh, I sent you such a good one on that same like concept.
Wait, what?
Somebody made a suggestion. I don't remember who it was. It was just some tweet or something. But it says somewhere in the Bible that you cannot charge people interest on loans.
Okay.
So just have like a liberal congressperson bring it up that it says in the Bible we cannot issue interest on these loans. So all government loans need to be interest free. And just so that you can get Republican Congress people on record saying you cannot use the Bible to make policy and like have that recorded in the annals of the Senate. And just, I feel like that would fix a lot of problems going forward.
That would be great.
Because it's like they're so into Bible thumping until it affects their pockets.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of pockets, obviously the big news of the week, everyone is talking about it, the big, beautiful bill. It's big. I don't think it's beautiful, though. No body positivity on this show and no bill positivity. This is from Fox News. Again, all these outlets are doing live coverage right now of this. And let me make sure that nothing else has gone down like while I was literally talking live on the show. Big, beautiful bill. CNN is still doing live updates, it seems. All right. So President Donald Trump's legislative agenda temporarily ground to a halt in the House of Representatives Wednesday afternoon. Plans for an early afternoon vote to begin debate on Trump's big, beautiful bill slipped away as both conservative concerns and weather delays led to issues in passing two procedural votes ahead of the critical measure. It's not clear if the key vote will proceed today at this point. House Freedom Caucus Chairman Andy Harris, Republican, Maryland, one of the bill's biggest critics, told reporters a vote was still possible. But so did this vote happen, though? Big, beautiful bill vote. Two-face tight vote 13 minutes ago. I might move to like something because this is from 5 hours ago and I feel like that's not even I want to do like the minutes now that we're all the way into the show. Sorry. Now there's like videos here. What is going on? Maybe Associated Press. House, this is from Associated Press from 17 minutes ago. House back to work as GOP leaders try to win over holdouts on Trump's tax bill. The House sprang back into action late Wednesday after a prolonged stalemate as Republican leaders spent the afternoon and evening working furiously to convince skeptics to support President Donald Trump's tax and spending cuts package and send it to his desk by the 4th of July deadline. The day evolved into one of fast starts and hard stops as Speaker Mike Johnson recalled lawmakers to Washington. GOP leadership vowed immediate consideration of the 887 bill, eager to seize on the momentum of its passage the day before in the Senate. But after a quick procedural vote in the morning, the chamber stood idle for more than 7 hours as GOP lawmakers met with Trump at the White House and others shuttled in and out of the Speaker's office for private meetings. The American people gave us a clear mandate, and after 4 years of Democrat failure, we intend to deliver without delay, the top 4 House GOP leaders said after the Senate passed the bill Tuesday, thanks to Vice President J.D. Vance's tie-breaking vote. It's a risky gambit, one designed to meet Trump's demand for a holiday finish. Republicans have struggled mightily with the bill nearly every step of the way this year, often succeeding by the narrowest of margins, only one vote. Their slim 220 to 212 majority, leaving little room for defections. Several Republicans are balking at being asked to rubber stamp the Senate version less than 24 hours after passage. A number of moderate Republicans from competitive districts have objected to the Senate bill's cuts to Medicaid, while conservatives have lambasted the legislation as straying from their fiscal goals. It falls to Johnson and his team to convince them that the time for negotiations is over. They will need assistance from Trump to close the deal, and lawmakers headed to the White House for a 2-hour session to talk to the president about their concerns. The president's message was, "We're on a roll," said Representative Ralph Norman, Republican, South Carolina. He wants to see this. Republicans are relying on their majority hold of Congress to push the package over a wall of unified Democratic opposition. No Democrats voted for bill in the Senate, and none were expected to do so in the House. Hell no, said House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, flanked by fellow Democrats outside the Capitol. But in an early warning sign of House Republican resistance, a resolution setting up terms for debating Trump's bill barely cleared the House Rules Committee on Wednesday morning. As soon as it came to the full House, it stalled out as GOP leadership waited for lawmakers who were delayed coming back to Washington and to conduct closed-door negotiations with holdouts. By nightfall, as pizzas and other dinners were arriving at the Capitol, the next steps were uncertain. The bill would extend and make permanent various individual and business tax breaks from Trump's first term, plus temporarily add new ones he promised during the 2024 campaign. This includes allowing workers to deduct tips and overtime pay, and a $6,000 deduction for most older adults earning less than $75,000 a year. And if you're interested, like if you're in the service industry, especially, or tipping industry, if you're interested in learning more about, I think AOC called it a deal with the devil, the deduct tips and overtime pay, especially the tips. You can go to her Instagram. She talked about it today. In all, the legislation contains about $4.5 trillion in tax cuts over 10 years. The bill also provides about $350 billion for defense and Trump's immigration crackdown. Republicans partially pay for it through less spending on Medicaid and food assistance. The Congressional Budget Office projects the bill will add about $3.3 trillion to the federal debt over the coming decade. The House passed its version of the bill in May by a single vote, despite worries about spending cuts and the overall price tag. Now it's being asked to give final passage to a version that, in many respects, exacerbates those concerns. The Senate bill's projected impact on the nation's debt, for example, is significantly higher. Let's go Republicans and everyone else, Trump said in a late evening post. Johnson is intent on meeting Trump's timeline and betting that hesitant Republicans won't cross the president because of the heavily political price they would have to pay. They need only look to Senator Tom Tillis, Republican, North Carolina, who announced his intention to vote against the legislation over the weekend. Soon, the president was calling for a primary challenger to the senator and criticizing him on social media. Tillis quickly announced he would not seek a third term. One House Republican who has staked out opposition to the bill, Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky, is being targeted by Trump's what?
Dude, he's the GOAT.
Oh, but
he's the only one doing it right in Congress.
Is being targeted by Trump's well-funded political operation. Flanked by nearly every member of his caucus, the Democratic leader, Jeffries, is there a missing thing? Of New York delivered a pointed message. With all Democrats voting no, they only need to flip 4 Republicans to prevent the bill from passing. Jeffries invoked the courage of the late Senator John McCain, giving a thumbs down to the GOP effort to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, and singled out Republicans from districts expected to be highly competitive in 2026, including 2 from Pennsylvania. And again, I don't love that, the only reason that someone would, go against their party is to win re-election. That's fucking pathetic. But okay, grow some balls or vagina. Why would Rob Bresnahan vote for this bill? Why would Scott Perry vote for this bill? He said. Democrats have described the bill in dire terms, warning that Medicaid cuts would result in lives lost and food stamps cuts would be literally ripping the food out of mouths of children, veterans, and seniors, Jeffries said Monday. Republicans say they are trying to right-size the safety net programs for the population they were initially designed to serve, mainly pregnant women, the disabled, and children, and root out what they describe as waste, fraud, and abuse. The package includes new 80-hour-a-month work requirements for many adults receiving Medicaid and applies existing work requirements in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, aka SNAP, to more beneficiaries. States will also pick up more of the food costs for food benefits. The driving force behind the bill, however, is the tax cuts. Many expire at the end of this year if Congress doesn't act. The Tax Policy Center, which provides nonpartisan analysis of tax and budget policy, projected the bill would result next year in a $150 tax break for the lowest quintile of Americans, a $1,750 tax cut for the middle quintile, and a $10,950 tax cut for the top quintile. That's compared with what they would face if the 2017 tax cuts expired. Let's see what people are saying. And then, there's no comments. I thought there was comments on this one. Oh, no, because I moved to the other thing. I think there was Fox comments. Someone saying they left no tax on tips in, but took out no taxes on Social Security checks. Everyone should pay taxes on their incomes, no matter how much they earn. People on a fixed income and Social Security should not have to pay taxes. They were already taxed when they worked and earned the income. Blah, blah, blah. The supposed holdouts will be cowards in the end. This is all entirely performative. Trump said they had until the 4th to get this done. So a few of them will showboat until the very last minute and then inevitably cave because none of them actually have a backbone when it comes to Trump. This bill is going to pass. It's silly pretending that it may not. The GOP will cower to Trump's every desire like they always do. And these are comments on Fox.com, just so you guys know. So what... just to wrap up, I want to just see if there's a easier, like, what... Well, if you want to get it straight from the horse's mouth, you can go to whitehouse.gov, myth versus fact, the one big beautiful bill, updated June 29th, 2025. Well, let's just read a little piece of this. Myth. This is how it starts. Myth. The one big beautiful bill is just a tax break for billionaires. Fact. The one big beautiful bill delivers the largest middle and working class tax cut in U.S. history. The president's legislation will put more than $10,000 a year back in the pockets of typical hardworking families. This is the most pro-growth, pro-worker, pro-family legislation ever crafted. As we just saw in that last article, these $10,000 a year tax cuts are only going to the largest quintile. So I don't know why he's saying that's working class. That the working class would be the middle quintile, which was $1,750. The one big beautiful bill takes from the rich. Takes from the poor to give to the rich. Fact. Low-income workers stand to receive the largest percentage reduction in their tax liability. The one big beautiful bill delivers the largest tax cut in history for working and middle-class Americans. Who do we think wrote this? The biggest tax cut in history. Let's see what else. Yeah, because yeah, like this is just blatantly going against what the Associated Press news article just broke down as far as the quintiles. So I don't know what the fuck they're trying to tell us on here. This is really actually wild that's on the government website. If you want to go quick to NPR, 5 ways Trump's tax bill will limit healthcare access. Many people will have to work to stay on Medicaid is number one. Less cash means less care in rural communities, which is already a huge problem in rural communities, that people do not have access to health services as it is. 3, ACA coverage will become harder to get and keep. For those with ACA marketplace coverage, the GOP plan would make it harder to enroll and to retain their plans. 4, those on Medicaid will have to pay more to see the doctor. 5, some immigrants will lose access to subsidized ACA plans entirely. So I don't. It's really wild that I just think that there's actually just lies printed on. I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised, but it's just weird to see like lies on the actual government website. Little weird. The BBC is reporting kind of the biggest chunks of the big beautiful bill. It's an extension of 2017 Trump tax cuts. Social Security taxes. On the campaign trail, Trump vowed to eliminate taxes on Social Security income, monthly payments to Americans of retirement age, and people with disabilities. Obviously, it's the BBC. That's why they're explaining it. Obviously, if you're in America, you know. That it says the House bill fell short of delivering on that promise, but it did temporarily increase the standard deduction of up to $4,000 for individuals 65 and over. That deduction would be in place from 2025 through 2028. Senate Republicans approved an extension of Social Security tax breaks and an increase that would grant a $6,000 tax deduction for older Americans who earn no more than $75,000 a year. Again, as we just said in the previous article, more Medicaid requirements. Increasing state and local tax deduction, SALT, the food benefits with SNAP that we talked about, no tax on overtime or tips or other elements, clean energy tax cuts. So again, we'll just see really basically no one, so few people seem to think this bill is a good idea. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, we'll keep following along. And that's our show today. It was action-packed. Yes?
So I read a thing that said the big, beautiful bill would call for borrowing 3 to 4% of all the money in the world.
Why would it?
It's 3.1 trillion.
That's the cost of the bill?
Yeah. So how much money is there in the world?
That feels like a ChatGPT question.
The amount is between 80 and 90 trillion. Yeah, so 3.1 trillion dollars is the debt that they're talking about taking on. So that's 3 to 4% of all the money in the world, and this is literally just the budget for the year.
Right.
We're just keeping the lights on, and it's going to cost us 3% of all the money in the world. That's unsustainable, like by definition.
What was the number that it gave you?
80 to 90 trillion. When focusing on just physical currency and easily accessible bank deposits, the amount is 80 to 90 trillion. Obviously, we're not talking about liquidating like all the oil in Saudi Arabia. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because ChatGPT says liquid money is approximately 123 trillion, financial assets 305 trillion, total private wealth 418 trillion, all assets combined approximately 900 trillion.
Sure.
And but they do specify it all depends on what counts as money, cash, bank deposits, investments, real estate, or total wealth. We're looking at hundreds of trillions of dollars all told.
So even if it is 100 trillion, you know, even if it is 900 trillion, still taking 0.3% of all the money in the world just to keep the lights on and keep the machine going for another year is unsustainable.
Yeah.
Simply unsustainable. And the fact that anyone is voting yes on this because they fear Trump is like, you know, then this already is an autocratic state.
How is he? So like how is he trying to sell this from what you've heard?
I mean, he's trying to sell it as this is what we need to do. There's no other way around it, right? This is all he knows is taking out loans he never intends to repay. That's every business decision he's ever made.
Oh boy.
Every contractor who's ever worked with him has had to take him to court to get their money. Like,
right.
This is not a dude you want running fiscal policy, especially when, you know, you talk about the reason that he got elected is rising gas and grocery prices. And it's like, he opened up all the drilling. Gas prices don't seem to be going down. The value of the dollar has plummeted almost 23% this year.
Right.
So it's like the eggs aren't getting any cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Adding 3.1 billion to the country's debt and then forcing banks to buy up the United States debt because it's becoming more and more you know, of a volatile and frankly toxic asset on the world stage. Add to that China's inroads, you know, trying to make themselves the standard currency worldwide. It's like there's a lot of issues here.
Well, and it's also crazy that you're taking on this debt and then you're also like, people in America are getting less stuff.
Well,
A lot of people.
the people that matters, right? Like the billionaires and trillionaires are getting more stuff. Israel's getting more bombs.
Well, I mean, we're talking
That's
about.
what matters to Trump.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about everyday people. Are getting less
saying
stuff.
Are you saying that we shouldn't be giving 1/10 of 3% of the world's wealth
No,
in military arms to another country?
No, obviously. Well, I'm a pacifist first and
wildly
foremost,
anti-Semitic
and
of you.
then second. No, don't. No, let's not even get into that because I'm going to get feisty. But I mean, first of all, I'm a pacifist, so I don't. Obviously, I understand that we need to have a military, but like I'm completely against it. For so many reasons that we've discussed ad nauseum on this show. And furthermore, well, I don't think that we shouldn't help other countries at all. I believe we really should be concentrating more on helping the people who are struggling, which is so many people within our country. Like that should be the president's first on their to-do list when they wake up in the morning, and it just seems not to be. All right, well, guys, that is our show. It was a full one. We talked about a lot, jam-packed. If you want to send me an email, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com, specifically interested in municipal politics right now. But really anything that you find of interest, you can send over to me. Just like try to like just, sometimes people send me like really like tens of thousands of articles. Or like 10 links or something. Like I just don't have the time to do that amount of research for a singular email. So just kind of point me in the direction where you think it will be most relevant to the show and most interesting, and I'll follow your lead for your own municipal politics. Again, follow us on Instagram, Without a Country Podcast. I'm also at Philanthropy Gal. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube, however you consume this show. Even if you consume it on audio, it's good to just click that subscribe button on Without a Country. We've been gaining lots of new followers, which is great. And as I said, we have really fast tracked the show to get this audio out to you the same night that it's recorded. So shout out to Mike for making that happen. I know a lot of people were having problems with how late the audio was being delivered. There was a lot of issues going on there with Apple and everything, but we lifted the show up to 7 p.m. Eastern time to get you the audio faster. And Mike, do you have anything to promote for yourself?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, this weekend I am back in Perryville. I'm going to be there with Brendan Sagalow, Ben Stabe from the AO Actually podcast, and Paco from Gas Digital and The Bonfire. He's going to be hosting. Going to be a very fun show. Tickets available at fifthcompanybrewing.com. And
wait, so let me just say, guys, seriously, if you're in that area, Brendan Sagalow is one of my favorite stand-up comedians. He's so funny. Go check out that show.
Yeah, that show is going to be incredible. You know what else is going to be incredible? July 31st at Melrose Ballroom. The reason that my voice is so shot is because I went ham live emceeing for Armored Combat on Friday. This show is going to be 3 times as large. We sold out 150 tickets in 48 hours last week.
Whoa, congrats.
Yeah, it was very cool. And this one is going to sell out just quickly. So head on over to thearmoredleague.com, grab tickets for a very special event. I believe I'm going to be doing commentary on Amazon that night. Pretty
Ooh,
cool.
Exciting. All right, guys, go support Mike. Thanks for being on this, supporting this show. If you want to join the Patreon, it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. You can be a cutie for as little as $6 a month. Shout out to the newest dictator, Christopher Fan Guy, to my cuties and my capitalist pigs, or rather my capitalist pigs and my cuties, because we do have levels here. And thank you so much for joining me. And remember, the truth is in there. Continue to keep critically thinking. Appreciate you. Have a great week. Be safe on 4th of July. Don't be doing weird shit with fireworks and lose a finger or something. All right, bye.
playing for you even after I dropped it. In the intro, I lowered it on my end, so I wasn't hearing an intro. I just had you going, ooh boy. All right, shut the music off. And I'm
Oh, it kept going. No, it was like yeah, it stopped at one point, and then I was like, oh, the music stopped, and then I don't know.